What's up, creepers? Michael here, bringing you another edition of the Freeloader series. Freeloader series number 8. This episode originally aired way back in February 2018. So, if you haven't been a patron, then you wouldn't have heard it. But that's okay, because this is for the freeloaders. You get your patronage. You get your patronage, or anyways, you get your Patreon shit, but 2 years later. Okay? That's fair. I think that's fair. And that's, guys, because we want you to hear it, you know? We want you to hear it overall. And also, it's fun for us to go back and listen to these old episodes and see how we haven't learned anything. Okay? All right, guys. So this is B.T.K. Oh, let's just say, hypothetically, you didn't want to be a freeloader anymore. Just hypothetically, okay? I'm not getting crazy. But if you just got anxious for a little more true crime, guys, you can go to patreon.com/truecrimeguys, and just for $2 a month, $2 a month, that's like not even half your Starbucks coffee, okay? You can get a ton of True Crime Guys episodes. All right, I'll leave you alone about it. All right, guys, enjoy Dennis Rader, B.T.K. See you on the other side for ads and shout-outs. Peace.
So what's up? This is the 11th Patreon exclusive
10th,
episode.
I think.
10th? This is number 10?
This is number 10.
Dennis Rader, B.T.K, number 10?
10th anniversary.
He doesn't deserve it.
Nah. Well, he is kind of
We're really going to tear this guy apart, people.
Yeah, it's going to
be
be
know
fun.
that he's got a special place in your hearts. I had a hell of a fun time studying him because he's fascinating, but he's also so goddamn boring at the same time. But he's also fascinating.
He's fascinating. Well, half
his
of him
outer
is.
appearance was so boring.
It was.
But
super
really,
boring.
he was not boring. He was about as strange as it gets inside. But
I think it's fitting that he's number 10, really, because he's like all serial killers rolled into one.
Yeah.
He's like got a little bit of all.
But he also has
other serial killers.
But he also has some things that are completely unique to him, like that no other serial killers I can think.
Like what?
Like his ability to just disappear for years and years and years on end, and then reappear like a phantom. He's a phantom killer.
I don't feel like he had anything that was his. I feel like he copied.
Who else
everybody.
did that? Who else disappeared for 30 years?
Well, I mean, nobody disappeared for 30 years. But
That's why, because he was so boring.
Jack the Ripper.
He could just go right back into obscurity.
Jack the Ripper.
I feel like he was kind of like
still.
Well, I mean, no one knows what happened to him. He could have been dead right after the last victim.
Hey, fair enough. But he didn't get caught.
Right. I mean, I guess Zodiac, but Zodiac never really reappeared.
Right.
Did he?
He probably didn't use floppy disk either. No. That's why he lasted so long.
God, this guy was so dumb. So dumb.
Dude, that's what happens when you take too long off serial killing. You get out of the game, you're out of practice.
Right.
You got to study the current game.
Your old man River back there. Are these floppy disks traceable?
It's like it's like Brett Favre coming back to the Vikings. This was a bad idea.
Right.
The game has changed.
Right. They're gonna break you in half, Brett. Oh my God. Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, he's a crazy one.
Yeah. So yeah, you want to get into him?
I guess so.
So we can actually talk about the guy?
Right, yeah.
All right, let's do it.
New information about what may have driven B.T.K to kill 10 people. KIC's Kara Kamori is in East Wichita with the latest.
What did you do then?
Strangled her.
What did you strangle her with?
Pantyhose.
What happened then?
Dennis Rader was really trying to push away his demon.
I already figured out I had a plan on leaving and put her in a blanket and drug her to the car and put her in the trunk of the car.
So you were able to strangle her to death with these pantyhose?
Yes, sir.
When his mother spanked him, it caused both pain and pleasure.
All right, you put her in your car.
Her car. The trunk of her car.
What happened then?
I think it's just a fantastically interesting case about somebody who thinks they can deny their inner reality, deny who they are, whether it's on a sexual level or a religious level or a psychological level.
I really had a commitment I needed to go to, so I moved her to one spot, took her out of her car. This gets complicated.
We can all look at him and say, yes, he's the absolute epitome of evil and monstrosity. But what circumstances created that in him?
Then the stuff I had, clothes, gun, whatever, I took that to another spot in her car, dumped that off. Okay. Then took her car back to her house.
these are the kind of dynamics that can lead to really bad behavior.
Okay. In the interim, I took her car back to her house. In the interim, I realized that I had lost one of my guns. I dropped it somewhere. So I was just trying to figure out where my gun was. So I went back in the house, realized I had dropped it when I broke the plate glass window. It dropped and fell on the floor right there, and I found it right there. So that solved that problem.
If he goes into the Army, maybe that'll take care of it. If he gets married, maybe that'll take care of it. If they join the church, maybe that'll take care of it. Nothing took care of it.
Anyway, I went back out, threw the keys, checked the car real quick, threw the keys up on top of the roof of her house, walked from her car back to my car.
He was a compliance officer for the city of Park City, and he was kind of a little bit of a jack of all trades. He was kind of in charge of the dog catcher there.
The dog catcher?
Right. That's exactly right.
I know this is going to make a lot of people mad, but when I think dog catcher, I have very bad connotations.
Took my car, drove it back, and I either dropped more stuff off or I picked her up and put them in my car. And then I drove up northeast of Sedgwick County and dropped her off underneath the bridge.
We have one report where he was measuring the length of grass in the front yard
with a ruler,
and writing citations because of that.
With a ruler?
Yeah.
So all of these incidents, these 10 counts, occurred because you wanted to satisfy a sexual fantasy. Is that correct?
Yes.
He was the president of his Lutheran Church congregation here in Wichita. They could not believe that this was the same man who sat in their pews.
Dennis Rader, B.T.K, number 10.
10th anniversary.
He doesn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve it. All right, our case this week is Dennis Rader. You guys know him.
Have they heard of him?
B.T.K.
Oh yeah, that guy. I remember
We
him.
should use his acronym, his letters to create another more terrible name for him.
Oh wow. Yeah, we should have planned
Right
for
on the
this.
spot.
Yeah, right on the spot. Bald, terrible killer man.
Bald, that's not bad. The first, just
Bald,
on the spot.
on the spot. Bald, terrible killer. I don't know.
It was Bind, Torture, Kill. For the longest time, before I really looked into him, I used to think it was Blind, Torture, Kill for some reason.
Oh, blind torture.
You fucking poke their eyes out first.
Oh wow,
Went to
crucial.
Went
That
to the
would
old
be
school
crucial.
eye gouge move.
Yeah. He really wasn't that much of a torturer, in my opinion.
I feel
from
like
some of the other people we studied.
That's an underutilized move, the old 2-finger to the eye poke.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Underutilized?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
in general. Like if you're trying to.
Well, that's because the Stooges taught us how to defend it.
Yeah,
with the other hand.
With the hand on the nose.
Yeah. So it's
You gotta
outdated.
You got to be quick.
You got to be real quick.
You got to be quick.
Or why not just use both hands? It's unstoppable.
I guess.
It's unstoppable.
No, I like the old school.
All right.
Just
better hope they're not onto you.
How'd we end up here?
I don't know.
So Bind, Torture, Kill.
Right.
He had 10 victims. We'll just do a quick synopsis. Disappeared for 30 years at one point.
Right.
Just about 30 years.
Just lived a normal life.
Well, 20. It was 20-something years technically from his last.
Like 27, right?
His last conversation with the police.
Yeah.
Until he reappeared, but it was almost 30 years exactly from his first victim to when he reappeared in 2004.
Wow. That's a long time, man.
It's a roller coaster ride for his victims that survived, like the family members of the victims, and
how many people died in that 30 years and never got closure?
Right.
What happened to
their
loved ones?
Some people will talk about who the husband of one of the women that he killed was looked at sideways for 18 years.
Oh yeah, because everybody suspected him of killing her.
And we watched a documentary. Well, you want to talk about the books and the things we used to study, which were plentiful.
Yeah, sure. What was that documentary you were watching when I came in?
It's called I Survived B.T.K. Michelle K. actually recommended it to us. It was basically they followed around Charlie Otero, and we'll get pretty quickly into the Otero murders, which were his first killings.
Right.
B.T.K. And Charlie Otero was an older sibling of the family that wasn't home at the time, and it follows him in the 2000s, right around 2004 when B.T.K. reemerged.
Right.
It followed him around and heard his side of the whole thing, and you see how it's affected his life. He's been in and out of jail.
Yeah.
And it also talked to Steve Relford, who was a 5-year-old at the time that his mother was murdered by B.T.K. We'll get into that one later.
Right.
And you could see how messed up he was from it. He said that his life was completely fucked by Dennis Rader.
Right. Charlie's seemed to be too.
Yeah. Oh, no
Otero's,
doubt.
I mean,
Both
they
of
were
these
both-
dudes, they never really recovered from it, from what they suffered from at a young age by this guy. And it's good to see that. It's good. It's just good to see, like, it's sad, but it gives you some perspective on how serious this is and how it affects everyone, not just the victim, but the entire family forever. Like, they're never the same. And some people just never recover from it. When your mother's killed at a young age by this person, and
yeah, it really is hard to put it into perspective. It's easy to go, well, these happened 30, 40 years ago, but when the effects when you can still see the effects now, it's just like, damn.
yeah.
It's just that much more devastating.
Like Charlie Otero, I was just watching him, and you can just sense that he probably on a daily basis wonders what his life would be like if his 4 family members had not been killed. His mother,
every
his
day
father,
you
his
have to.
brother,
Yeah.
and his sister. Yeah.
Every day you must
Like,
wonder that.
he must every holiday get really sad thinking like, what would Christmas be like with my family? You know,
Right.
just all this stuff. So,
And
but
then-
yeah, it was a really good documentary, and thanks Michelle for recommending that. And there was also some conspiracy to it. He was kind of alluding to the fact that, you know, the public knowledge that's out there that Dennis Rader did this. He kind of found it hard to believe that one man could have done this to his family. That it just, I think, but in a sense, he's kind of, he doesn't want to believe that one guy could do that. You know, he doesn't want to believe that his father could be overpowered by this guy with his mother there, and like he.
Right.
I think he's just it's hard to accept.
It
which
is hard to accept.
no matter what it would be. So.
And he doesn't want to give that one guy the satisfaction,
Right.
either, of taking down the whole family.
Right.
But honestly, I don't think Rader would have. He's not going to let anybody know. I mean, that's just the type of person he is. He wouldn't have anybody there, because then that person would have seen that side of him and lived.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Fuck. What are you doing? Playing your book so everybody
I
can hear
didn't
it?
mean to.
Let's just play the book, man. Let's just take a day off. Let's just take a day off.
Executive producer.
There we go. We'll just.
You could tell I finished it.
Yeah, right.
He's giving credits.
Right.
So the book that I got was Inside the Mind of B.T.K, the story behind the 30-year hunt for the notorious Wichita serial killer by legendary FBI profiler John Douglas, who is the guy that wrote the book Mindhunter.
Yeah.
Basically the main character in the show Mindhunter was based off of John Douglas, who was in the FBI forever. Extremely well respected in the crime world as far as a guy who kind of has this thumb in the mind of a serial killer, if that's an expression at all.
So that was from the mind of the detective, pretty much, from the point of view.
From the point of view, yeah. A lot of the book is spent just. That's the only parts that bother me. Is some of the book is like it's just too much about him.
Yeah.
You know, like he's talking about
Well,
laying
a
in
lot of
bed
it's
next to his
filler,
wife and like
yeah.
the thoughts that are in his head and this and that. But in a sense, it's still interesting because he talked a lot about how much it affected him just constantly. Like he was obviously, if you watch the show Mindhunter, he would interview these. He talked about his interview with Richard Speck, and you saw that reenacted in the show Mindhunter when he squashes the bird. Like he talks about that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
just how much it affected his daily life and his life with his wife and. How he couldn't sleep at times because this stuff, you know, he wanted to catch these guys so bad. And,
Right.
like,
And you're like,
viewing
quit
the
bitching,
crime.
tell me about Dennis Rader.
Right. But then it got into that.
got
Like
you.
I was almost giving up on the book in the early chapters. I'm like, all right, enough about yourself, bro. Like,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on. I'm reading this to learn about B.T.K. And then he went deep into B.T.K.
Yeah.
And the book's like 12 hours long. And like, I'd say a good 10 hours of it are still about B.T.K., his childhood, them hunting him, which was really fascinating to learn about how they, you know, how crazy he drove them for so long, and then how
Right.
great it was when they finally caught him, and then like he had so much details about the actual crimes themselves because he had access to all the police files, all the police photos. He had access to BTK's journal, you know, all that stuff. So
Right.
he got into the mind of this guy big time.
Oh, hell yeah.
So
That is cool.
yeah, it's a great book.
Mine was a little bit different. It was from, like, I guess, a third party that had just done a lot of research and a lot of interviews and the people that were involved.
Yeah.
But it was called B.T.K. Unholy Messenger by Stephen Singular.
A lot about his religious life, right?
It was a lot. It actually focused on his pastor a lot. Pastor.
Well, that's something
Michael
that
Clark.
I didn't get any of that from my book. They barely mentioned that
Oh,
he was in the
man.
church at all. So it'll be good to
Dude,
get your
he
perspective.
talked about that pastor so much. I was like, he did it. He's behind it. He's behind it all. Fucking Pastor Clark. He did it.
Shit.
He had to have. He
Right.
just brainwashed Dennis to take the fall.
Oh, Jesus.
No, I don't know, but they really did talk about him a lot in this book. But it was really interesting.
Yeah.
He has his own demons, and he's one of the people that never gave up on Dennis. he was still visiting them every week all through the trial and everything, 2 times a week, actually.
Which is kind of crazy because, like, we were watching the documentary that we were just talking about with the Otero boy and everything, and like they were showing a woman who was standing outside the church at his hearing, and she was saying how the church is against him because he hasn't came clean about his sins, or he hasn't.
Well, she's talking about the church as a whole. She's talking about a lot of these outside churches were protesting his church,
right?
Like telling them like, oh, you must be doing wrong. How can you be supporting this man? Blah blah blah, or whatever.
Well, the other church's main issue was that he didn't have any remorse. He didn't repent, right? Like it was more he acknowledged what he did and he came clean about it, but at the same time he showed no remorse or anything like that. He didn't felt that he'd done anything wrong. It seemed because these guys are just a monster.
Well, the Bible doesn't say if you confess your sins and show remorse.
That doesn't matter. Huh?
That doesn't matter. No.
So the other churches are wrong. His church is right.
I don't know. Shit. That's another conversation, right?
Right. I want to make it clear, though, John Douglas, he was not like a main investigator. He was just someone that Wichita police did kind of go to get a profile on. Yeah. And he kind of took it upon himself and became obsessed with B.T.K. throughout his career. He kept going back. He was busy with other cases and whatnot.
Right.
He's a busy guy. But he kept going back to B.T.K. because he just found it so fascinating. He would check up on him. He would check up on Wichita police. And then at the end, after he retired from the FBI, he dove in head first to try and help catch the guy and gave a lot of important advice to the police in Kansas to help catch this guy. So I don't want to make it sound like he was the guy that caught B.T.K. because he wasn't. But,
right.
But John Douglas, I mean, if you're into true crime, you must know who he is by now, especially if you watch Mindhunter. And looking forward to season 2, where B.T.K. will be, I'm guessing, the main character in season 2. They're kind of like keep showing little clips of Dennis Rader, like here and there throughout season. You got to watch it, man.
Yeah, don't crucify me, but I haven't seen any of it yet.
Oh, you're tripping.
I know.
Such a good show.
I didn't know you had watched already. You had already watched the season.
Of course.
I know. I'm behind.
Call yourself a true crime fan.
I'm studying for our fucking show.
So am I.
Yeah, sure. You already watched it way before this.
All right. So Dennis Rader, he was born March 9th, 1945. He shares a birthday with Matthew Gray Gubler. Who the fuck is that?
He's Spencer on Criminal Minds.
Who?
Spencer.
Who?
He's like the really smart guy. He's like the guy that gets in the. He lives in Las Vegas.
I don't watch Criminal Minds.
Wow.
See, I guess I'm a bad true crime fan.
His mom owns the ranch in Sandy Valley, like the big ranch.
I haven't been to Sandy Valley.
Call yourself a freaking native.
He also shares a birthday with Bow Wow. Now that I can get him bored with.
Can you?
Yeah.
Wonder what he's up to now. Last time I heard, he was posing in front of a jet or some shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was like.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He was trying to act like it was his jet, and it wasn't.
Else's. He's like in coach.
Right.
He's like, hey, could you get out of these seats? I'm trying to take a selfie.
Right. Yeah, you got ratted out.
Trying to look empty up in here.
Rader was the oldest of 4 sons. His parents were William and Dorothy Rader. He was born in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Some interesting facts I learned from the book was that his ancestors came over from Bavaria. And the name Rader came from the word rate, which meant that his ancestors were wheelwrights. They made like the wooden wheels for carriages and whatnot.
Oh.
And when Rader, I guess when he became aware of this, he started drawing pictures at a young age of women tied to these carriage wheels.
Well, it's good to get in touch with your roots.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, his ancestors built them, and now he's using them in a really creepy, unnatural way.
Yeah, wheel of torture.
I'm sure they're proud from the grave.
Yeah. They're probably down there. I'm sure Raiders are still doing good things.
We're rolling over on our wheels. This is ridiculous. His paternal grandparents were cousins, so there may be some inbreeding situation going on here.
You don't know that.
Because he is
could be cousins by marriage.
Big notch on the side of nature, this guy.
Really?
Just going to bring it up now. The only thing that was...
We're going here already.
Yes,
okay.
we are.
All right.
The only thing that was abnormal about Dennis Rader's childhood was Dennis Rader. That's the only thing that was abnormal
you
about
were fucking right. It's the way he interpreted shit. I just wanted to be like, not that weird. Not that weird.
Right.
Not that weird. Not an excuse.
Right. His mom got tangled up in some bed sheets, and he acts like that's a reason to start tying up women for the rest of his life. Really? It's like, my mom got tangled up in bed sheets. What the fuck? I didn't start tying people up.
Or he masturbating one day and tripped and got tangled up in the shower curtain.
Right.
And you're like, oh.
Right. What the hell, man?
Oh, man.
For the first 5 years of his life, he spent on his grandparents' farm, where he got enjoyment, an unnatural enjoyment out of watching his grandmother behead chickens and run around without their head on.
honestly, I think all kids find that
Yes.
fascinating. Come
So
on.
you can look at it
if
in
you
a
haven't
really-
seen a chicken run around with its head cut off, you're really not living as a child.
I haven't, man.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I might have to
Oh.
YouTube it.
All right. Yeah, YouTube it. My grandfather didn't even. He didn't even chop it. He just was like swing him around until the body floated off.
You know, I've bird hunted, so I've
Yeah.
pulled birds' heads off and stuff. I don't like it, but I don't enjoy it at all. So I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah.
My dad
What
took
were those
me.
pictures of it that I found though the other day in the studio? It was kind of odd.
They're tied up.
Yeah.
Don't mention.
Don't
mention it.
Oh, sorry.
I went bird hunting with my dad, dove hunting, and I shot one dove, and it was like still alive when I went over and got it from under this
Yeah.
bush, and I had to pull its head off, and I was like, I'm done bird hunting. I don't like this.
Did you hear what it sounded like?
Like, I
when
like
the
to
doves
hunt-
cry.
No, when they cry,
Yeah.
one single teardrop drops. This is bad, man.
No.
This is really dark. If you're an animal lover, I'm sorry for this conversation.
Yeah.
But like, it was enough to where I'm like, I don't think this is worth it. I mean, I get it for sport and everything, but like one dove is like a fucking, it's like an appetizer. It's like a little snack. Like taking that life for that. I mean, I get that they have to be, the population has to be controlled,
Right.
and that's
It
half of
just
what
felt
hunting is. That's what
pointless.
people don't understand is like populations of animals. That the wildlife control does a really good job of like managing our populations of animals, and it's
Right,
important.
right.
Like you can't have, like if you live in the Northeast. Like if the deer population isn't controlled, no one would be able to drive. Like it'd be so out of control. That's why they give like these just sell tags over the counter and stuff. Like they do a good job of managing it. Like people don't just get to kill as many animals as they want. You know what I mean? It's for a purpose. But like dove hunting, I didn't enjoy it because I just didn't enjoy killing the bird. And then it's like at least if I kill one deer, I can eat almost for a year on it. You know?
Right.
I could really see the point to that one life, as opposed to bird hunting where it just seems like people just enjoy it too much for very little reward other than the actual killing itself. So I don't know. This is a conversation I didn't expect to go down.
That's okay.
But I think that what I'm trying to say is I'm very much not like Dennis Rader here.
No. Like Lauren, Dennis Rader, completely different things.
Right.
Let's go ahead and establish
Let's just make that clear. Okay,
Yeah.
guys.
All right.
His father was tough and fair, according to Dennis Rader, in his own journals and conversations he had with investigators later on. He looked up to his father. No abuse. He refused to accept, even though they pushed him, like they had to think that there was some abuse in his childhood. He always steadfastly denied it.
You know
said
what?
No.
I don't think there was because
I don't either.
He just went along. He was a follower.
Yeah.
He was a people pleaser. He was a follower. Like he was a chameleon. He would give people what they wanted
Because he
would
was
show
a
them what they
psychopath
wanted
from
to
a young
see.
age.
Yeah.
He didn't know what emotion was. He tried to
Right.
fake it.
Yeah.
We've had guys like this we've studied in the past where
Right, and he does something, and he notices emotions in other people, and he's like, okay, they seem to like that.
Right.
He
he kept a tiny squirt bottle he could squirt in his eyes and cry at the right moment. Like that type of guy.
Right.
Or he'd just poke himself in the eye and like make it look like he's crying.
Right, exactly. Oh, is that what we're doing at this funeral? Okay.
All right. Oh, is that what you guys do? Okay.
Okay.
That's what humans do?
Right.
His mother was known to have like movie star qualities. They were saying she resembled Natalie Wood. All of the like friends that he had were like, you know, you can imagine the conversations that would go on about how hot his mom was and that type of thing. And it seemed like he had a very unnatural infatuation with her himself.
Ooh.
We talked about like
Yeah.
there was one moment when he was young. He started having dark thoughts at 3.
3. How
According
does
to
he
him.
even know?
According to him.
How did? All right, go ahead.
Oh,
What were they?
supposedly it started with his mom getting tangled up in bed sheets one night when he walked in the bedroom, and it just immediately clicked something in his head, kind of like Dahmer with the bones, his dad digging the bones out from under the home.
Yeah.
I guess that he just liked the idea of like a pretty woman being bound up and like unable
Yeah.
to do anything in a sense.
That is so strange. Kind of a Norman Bates thing going on. He
Right.
had a lot of similarities with that, with Norman, like wanting to dress up like women later and things.
There
like
were
that.
guys like him in past, like there's Harvey Glattman is one that he brought up, was a guy that it was way back. I want to say it was in like the 50s or something. If you look up Harvey Glattman, I'm just talking out of turn. I don't have the details in front of me. Maybe he'll be one that we study eventually. But Harvey Glattman was the same concept to where he was just into women being tied up, and that's what it was all about for him. And the killing was almost secondary. It was just he had to have some tied up woman
Yeah.
that he was in control of. It was like the best thing in the world for him.
Well, the crazy thing is that with the way that these guys are raised in like the very conservative households,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's more preposterous to think that there are people who like being tied up. There are people who actually have that type of desire, and you could seek those people out and, you know, maybe have relationships with those sorts of
Right.
people or whatever.
But I don't think
No, listen, it's more preposterous to do that than it is to have someone know your secret.
Right.
because
I
of
understand
you
what
see
you're
what I'm
saying.
saying?
Yeah.
It's more.
But at the same time, I think half the fun was that they really didn't want to be tied up. I don't think if he found a woman that was into it, that it would be as fun for him. I think half the fun was like they really don't want to be tied up, and I've got them tied up. You know what I mean? Like if she was like, if there was a safe word and all that, I don't think it would be any fun for him. That's just a hunch I have.
I don't know. I just think he couldn't deal with someone seeing that side of him.
Right? Like if you beat someone in a game but they let you win, like that's no fun. You know what I'm saying? I think that's kind of the way that he would view it.
Okay.
Like I hate playing my mom at Monopoly because she'll just do shitty trades because she wants she doesn't want me to lose.
you to be successful in life.
Yeah.
That's a good mom.
Not really. It's created this monster. I can't fucking lose at anything. Terrible loser.
It's like, here, Lauren, I'll pay you.
Not only am I an only child,
Here's
but I never
$3,000.
lost at anything growing up, so now I just cannot accept it.
Right. Oh, I landed on your thing again. Mom, no, you didn't. I saw what you rolled. Oh, it's fine. I owe you the money, son. Here you go.
It's way too accurate.
Go buy you a boardwalk.
We keep talking too much about me, but let's get back on to Dennis
sorry.
Rader here. So at youth, were you done with that whole thought process of the church thing? And
Partially. I'm sure I'll bring it back up again.
yeah, your book was all about it. So
Yeah, it was a lot about his spirituality and
Right.
his struggles with that. It was very interesting.
So after his capture during interrogations, we'll jump ahead for a minute here just to talk about the whole animal torture thing when he was younger. He denied at first in interrogations that he'd ever killed any animals. He did not want that image. Kind of like he still viewed himself as a good Christian man.
Absolutely.
And so like the idea that like he killed his victims and we'll get to it, but he never penetrated any of his victims. He never technically sexually assaulted them.
Because adultery, that's the real crime here.
Right. So he looked at it from the sense that he never cheated on his wife, even though he killed these women and like jacked off on them and stuff.
Yeah.
He didn't cheat on them because he never penetrated them. The same thing with animals. He couldn't handle the image that he killed animals at a young age. However, he did admit to tying them up and like hanging them and stuff like that.
From their
and,
necks.
and eventually when they pressed enough, he pretty much admitted that he killed animals at a young age. He would take them to a barn. Like he would love
choke 'em out.
He loved abandoned barns. He just loved the idea of them, that they were separated from a house, that they were out on their own and that he could do whatever he wanted in there.
Yep.
And so he would take cats, dogs, and basically tie them up, torture them at a young age.
God.
Good
What
stuff,
an
man.
animal. It's a good thing he didn't buy a house with a barn. Can you
Right.
imagine what he would have done with that
Oh my
barn.
goodness.
There'd probably be like hidden doors in there and shit.
Yeah.
Be creepy.
I want to make it clear though that this was all completely. He did such an amazing job. I mean, we see this with serial killers of separating that life from his outward persona.
Maybe
because
the best job.
Oh, no doubt
that I've ever seen.
I
in
mean,
a
he
serial
caught
killer.
people by surprise in the end. If everyone, his wife, everyone.
No one believed it right away that he was B.T.K.
Right.
Everyone that heard it was like, "No way, you got the wrong guy."
As a
Got the
kid,
wrong guy.
he was the kid that other parents would talk to their kid and say, "Why can't you be more like Dennis?" Because Dennis was polite. He was
his brother was told that.
unassuming.
His own brother was the problem child.
Yeah. Well, Dennis is also like, he was known by the same kids that the parents would tell that as boring. Like he had friends, but he was the boring friend. He didn't joke. Like he would laugh at other people's jokes, but he never joked around. He was just a serious guy. I would like to think that I would sniff this guy out, but I don't know. I'd have to
I don't think you would.
You don't think so?
Nah. I don't think anybody could have because he's just so boring.
But
You
I
probably
tend to
wouldn't have
think
even
that people
noticed
that
him
are that
more.
boring have something. I tend to believe that everyone's a little bit fucked up, and if they don't show it to you, they're doing something even more fucked up behind the scenes.
Yeah. That's interesting because I think 99% of people think the opposite, especially on people they know. Like it's easy to pass somebody in a grocery store and say, "Oh man, that dude's creepy as fuck." But if that guy came up to you and started having a conversation, maybe about his daughter or something, it's like, "Oh yeah, maybe you have your kids with you." It's like, "Oh yeah, mine's such and such age."
Right.
Now when you walk away, you're gonna think that was a good guy.
Right.
You have to. You don't want to walk away and go,
Right.
"Was I just like 5 feet from a serial killer?"
Right. Well, now we had this conversation, I believe, with Richard Ramirez, where you see younger pictures of Richard, and he looks like a normal guy. But then, as his crimes got more heinous, it seemed like he started to transform into this demon-looking person.
Yeah,
his appearance became this evil-looking monster.
How much of
and
that?
it's like the same thing with Dennis for me. Like I look at pictures of him when he was younger, I'm like, that's a pretty good-looking dude. Like you look at pictures of him in the military, you're like, that's a good-looking young dude.
It is hard to believe.
Doesn't
he
look
aged the
evil
way
at all.
did.
He doesn't look evil at all in his young pictures. When he gets arrested, he looks like an evil, demonic, like these eyebrows that are like pinched downward. Like if you were to draw an angry person, like his eyebrows fit the mold.
Yeah.
His fucking eyes were lifeless like a fucking shark.
It's like if you ever saw an adult on Charlie Brown, that's what they would look like.
Right.
With their eyebrow.
Just no life, man. Just glassy doll eyes. Just
that's it.
Demon.
But how much of that is, well, not so much with BTK, but like with Richard Ramirez, how much of that was just stress of being on the run? Because he was constant, like towards the, as it went on, he was constantly moving, stressing out.
Well, I'm sure BTK felt the same stress. Like, are they going to, in the book, it alluded to the fact that he, in his own mind, he's like waiting for them to, like, I can't believe they haven't caught me yet.
Right. And then he also had the stress of keeping up this image in real life.
Yep.
See, like Ramirez didn't. He's still fucking flipping people the bird and shit, walking down the sidewalk. He didn't give a fuck.
No.
But BTK wasn't. He had to put his shirt and tie on and go to church and pray on Sunday.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of a
different
animal.
He had an interesting series of jobs too, which will be fun to talk about as we progress through this. And it's like so perfect for a guy who's just trying to cover up for being a serial killer.
It really is. Totally under the radar.
Right. So in his childhood, we talked about him killing animals and stuff, and the weird obsession with his mother. He also this is around the time when he started incessantly drawing dark images of women being tied up, and he just could not, like, you've seen Superbad where the kid can't stop drawing dicks.
Yeah.
He cannot stop drawing pictures of women being tied up to save his life. Like, he's in the back of class just drawing up chicks being tied up.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And he was supposedly obsessed with those crime magazines that we talked about in the Ted Bundy episode. The detective magazines where it would show those images of beautiful women being tied up or whatnot.
Reenactments, yeah.
And it's like, to the right person, to the right set of genetics, that could be something that would really like just fuel that fire that they have in them.
Yeah, or they could.
But you can't blame the magazines. It's just like violent video games. You can't blame them because ultimately that person would still find something else that would take them down that path,
Right. No, if you immediately jump
if anything,
I need to tie someone up and kill them from that, then you got another problem.
I think you could almost point to him and say that these things might have actually prevented more murders because they kind of filled he was really good at filling his own fantasies. Like, that's a big reason for the big layoffs in killings, is that he would do one, take a bunch of photographs, start to recreate it in his mind in a perfect sense.
Yeah.
Like, the killings were never as good as his own fantasies, according to him. Like, there was always imperfections, that they would always fight in a way that he didn't want them to. Or, like, in his own mind, he could create the perfect crime, and he would do it with photographs of women. He would do the drawings that he would do, which they were perfect in his own mind.
Right.
And he started doing that at a young age.
I think the reason those drawings and stuff came to fruition is because he was made his whole life to be ashamed of these feelings, to these emotions. Like, you can't. In the way he was raised, in the conservative household he was raised,
70s.
Yeah, you can't even bring that shit up.
Right.
You can't even bring it up. It's like people are like, oh, you could have talked to some. No, he couldn't have talked to somebody. Like in where he's raised, and like just his upbringing, his church. Yeah. You just can't bring that stuff
it's so
up.
good.
You'll never be the same.
It's so good that in today, like in modern progressive society, that we're able to, no matter what we've got going on in our head, pretty much, there's someone that can help you with it. And that's so important because you need an outlet to like be able to like let it off your shoulders.
Yes, let it out. Like, look, guys, this is in my head. This is how I feel.
It's not a coincidence that there was the most serial killers in the 70s, because it was like a time of the 50s, 60s, 70s. They were all just a time of just hold in whatever dark secrets you have and don't let them out. Don't tell anyone that you're having these dark thoughts.
And the forensics weren't that great.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's a good combination.
Pretty much fingerprint. If you don't leave a clean fingerprint, they ain't getting your ass.
People were trusting too.
Right.
So it's kind of big. It's a shitstorm.
So we have like we talked about how he kept pretty much a diary throughout like most of his life, and even he had school notes that they found from his time as a child. One thing they found from this time was a quote that he had written down that says, "There once was a girl who had all the right curves and a large tummy, all the better to wrap up tight and make into a mummy."
Okay.
That's a little disturbing.
That might be a phone call home.
Bit of a flag.
Maybe a parent-teacher conference.
Right. He also told a story of when he was in elementary school. I think, actually, you know what? He didn't tell a story. They tracked down some friends from elementary school that he had. Yeah. And they had this class assignment where they were supposed to get into groups and do like a drawing together. Yeah. And, of course, he chose to draw like a woman trap.
Oh.
A girl trap is what it was.
I'm sure everybody will be on board for that.
They were kids, so it was a girl trap. And it was just this real... It was a girl that was like wrapped up in all this shit and she couldn't get it out. And all the other kids that were in his group were kind of like, this is a little, and he was just, I guess he was just glowing. Like, this is the best moment of his life. He's like,
guys, listen, we're going to get a great grade on this. Okay, I promise you.
Teacher comes over. Who do this? Whose idea was this?
They all pointed to this.
Right. Yeah, so that was a little bit of a flag there.
Yeah, he sat by himself at lunch that day.
Right. There was also another story, which kind of sounds a little bit Dahmerish to me, where he was driving in a car. This was in his high school days. He had like a group of friends, and they were out driving in a car. And he loved driving, by the way. That was another thing we had to bring up. He loved cars, loved driving.
Well, his family invented the wheel, so.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, that is true. That's a good point. There might be something to that. Anyways, one thing he would like to do is like make sure that the path would take them over railroad tracks, and they would all be talking right as they drove over the railroad tracks, and he would make a really realistic train sound and make them all think that in a split moment that they were getting hit by a train. And he just got off on this.
I could just see him and his no sense of humor ass sitting there just cackling to himself, whatever the hell that sounded like.
Or maybe he wasn't even laughing. He was just jacking off.
He was just like a
you all
rubbing down
thought
his
you were
pants
dead.
leg. Oh my god.
This guy's something else.
Oh my god. Oh, as the train whistle gets louder, he just gets more into it.
Right. He would end up graduating from Wichita Heights High School in the class of 1963. And in his adolescence, he had employment working in a supermarket. It wasn't until 1965 that he entered Kansas Wesleyan College in Salina. So he did on and off go through college. He would end up acquiring degrees.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive considering all the other extracurricular activities he was up to and the fact that he would shortly be married after this. But so after high school and working at the grocery store, he would end up being a mediocre student with poor grades in college. He was never a good student. College, elementary school. Like I said, too busy drawing women.
If you've seen any of his letters, you can tell.
Yeah.
It's like you almost think that English is his second language sometimes.
Oh, dude, yeah.
It's like, what? How do you... Do you read this aloud to yourself?
He once joked because, like, later on, when the letters were on the news and stuff, and he was married, his wife.
Talking about Paula?
Yeah,
what she said to him.
Yeah. So later on, I'm sure we'll talk about it again, but just now for the sake of the conversation that we're in, later on, when the letters are being put on the news for people to observe, the wife Paula sees the handwriting on the thing. She's like, "That looks just like your writing," and he goes, "Well," he joked. It's very quick to defend himself.
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, they didn't teach phonics back in my days when I was in school." And it's like, everyone else seems to be doing just fine. Yeah. Paul's pretty much the same age, and she can write just fine. But like he would cut out important words and sentences. You know, like
it was weird. It was almost like his brain just didn't have enough room for that in there. It was like just stuff that he probably knew if he really thought about it, but just
didn't have time for it, man. He's too busy.
He just couldn't express himself. He was terrible at expressing himself, obviously.
Right. Yeah, so his poor grades in college, and the fact that the draft for Vietnam was ablaze at the moment,
right?
He would end up joining the Air Force in 1966 to avoid being drafted into Vietnam as in the Army. And he was first at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, then Shepherd Air Force Base near Wichita Falls, Texas, Brooklyn Air Force Base in Mobile, Alabama, and then even stationed in Okinawa in outside of Tokyo.
Oh, I didn't know he was
Japan.
in Tokyo.
Yeah, and he during these travels around in the Air Force, he started getting heavily into prostitution.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, very Gary Ridgway-esque.
Huh, interesting.
Trying to fill his void, and he would even try to tie them up, and they weren't into it.
About that. I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that just out of high school was when he really started to go beyond. He had all these fantasies of breaking into things, and he started to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so at one point, fresh out of high school, when he was still attending college, he broke into his former high school in the middle of the night, went through like a roof access, went down into the classrooms, and he would write obscenities on the chalkboards, and he really got off on that. And he would just steal inanimate objects just so he could steal them, just so as a memento, to that.
And jack off on the teacher's desk and jump out the window.
For sure.
I got you.
Definitely did that.
Yeah. This is how it starts. This is how it starts with almost every serial killer. They start grabbing, they start stealing some stuff.
They get that rush, and then they're always chasing a dragon like they did a drug for the first time, and then it's just...
It's like this.
That's why we can never go beyond. If you have any fantasies about doing it, just don't do it because you're never going to turn back. It's proven time and time again. It must be something good about it because
burglary
people just keep doing it.
It's a gateway crime.
It is.
Just don't do it.
Right. So he is in the Air Force for 4 years, and during that time, he learned some marksman, survival skills, self-defense skills. He received the Air Force Good Conduct Medal, the Small Arms Expert Marksman Ribbon, and the National Defense Service Medal. I think these are kind of run-of-the-mill awards
Probably.
because he was. Well, when they interviewed people that he was in the military with, they said that he was like as average as it gets.
Yeah,
There's
if I'm not
nothing
mistaken,
special about the guy.
If
He
you
just-
graduate boot camp, you're a marksman. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
he got the small arms expert marksmanship ribbon. So what? Like he
Oh,
could
small arms.
shoot a handgun 10 feet.
Right.
No offense to anybody that has these
no,
awards.
no.
You know, I don't have one, so I can't really.
We're just shitting on Rader here.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal of this whole episode.
That's the goal.
He was discharged from active duty in the summer of 1970 and returned home to Wichita, Kansas, where he would serve 2 more years in the reserves. And that is shortly after that, when he was discharged from the military, when he was introduced to a woman at his church by his mother.
That's always a good match.
And it actually worked out because he was immediately really attracted to her. She was a tall blonde, I guess, with brown eyes, and he was just immediately...
Wait a minute. Something you glossed over I did not know. I didn't know his mother introduced him to her.
Yeah. His mother, when he returned from
Oh
the
my
military...
God, that makes so much sense.
She had a woman in mind that she liked from church, and it was like the most wholesome...
And of course, him never wanting to go against the grain, want everybody to like him.
Yeah.
He's going to accept, especially his mom. He's got that weird, probably still got that weird infatuation with his mom, and he's a man now.
Yep.
That's strange.
Right, Mama? This is what you want? Okay, Mama.
Okay.
Can you go get tangled up in those sheets for me real quick? And then we'll go to church. Jesus. So, yeah, he met Paula Dietz, and he would go on to marry her, and they would have 2 children, and she would be with him forever up until the end.
That's right.
And then we'll talk about what happened after he got locked up and was discovered to be the B.T.K. Strangler, how she reacted to that. Because some women, they still stand by their man. Some don't. We'll talk about that when it comes time. He would go on to attend Butler County Community College, where he earned his associates in electronics in 1973. He had a vast array of,
Yeah, he had
different,
a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah, he kind of like went to school for a bunch of different weird shit, and you're just like,
Yeah.
how are you going to use that?
Jack of all trades, master
Well,
of
he
none kind of deal.
he really did use the associates in electronics. Think about it. He went on to work for ADT later on, so you could see that.
Pretty sure he could have got that without that, but
Probably, but it didn't hurt.
yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh no.
He later attended the Wichita State University and earned a bachelor's in the administration of justice.
Oh, how ironic.
Yeah, he always wanted to be a cop, man. He was always obsessed with cops. That's one thing that.
Of course he did. Where he grew up in the world that he grew up in, cops are awesome.
John Douglas brought it up a ton in his book. How a lot of serial killers they have a infatuation with criminal justice. They want to be a badass cop,
Right.
And for whatever reason they don't pursue it or they fail at it.
Yeah.
And
so they want the cops' attention at least. They want to be equal. They're
Right.
like they're the top dogs of society apparently. So yeah.
He worked for an outdoor supply company for about a year until July of 1973. He then found an employment with Cessna, the small aircraft manufacturer, little Cessna planes.
Oh, okay. Never heard of him.
This was his favorite job. He loved working for Cessna, so much so that in late 1973, during the oil embargo crisis, aircraft sales plummeted, and there was a lot of talk about layoffs at Cessna because of the oil prices, and it was just not worth the profits and everything.
Right.
And he thought he was safe, and he ended up getting called in and laid off with a bunch of his coworkers. And this, in his mind, is what he said really sparked this killing spree that he goes on.
So like this is his like equivalent of Ted Bundy getting dumped by that girl that he really liked.
I mean, it was. I think
Right.
it was inevitable. He was a ticking time bomb, but this was what gave him the free time to really go out there and start trolling and like driving around. He found himself in a low frame of mind, unemployed, unhappy, with time on his hands, and he slipped deeper into a fantasy world that he'd known since childhood. So
Right.
He had too much time. He needed to be
too
occupied.
much time in their own mind. You know, there was a theory that serial killers have plummeted, every year from the 70s because of more stimulation.
Right.
So like our minds are more stimulated. Like now,
Think about being in
you're
line
standing
somewhere and not
you're on
having
your
a phone.
Yeah, you're on your phone. You're looking at stuff. Your mind is constantly stimulated by something. If you want it to
absolutely.
be, there's things everywhere.
Yeah.
And if not, then maybe you're with somebody and they're showing you something on their phone. Like there's no time to just sit there and be in your own mind.
Right. I was watching Into the Wild. Love that movie the other night, and he takes off and he just goes on this like months and months long journey of
love
just
to do
through
that.
the wilderness, and he ends up in Alaska and he's just by himself, and I'm just like, I would go nuts. I mean, it seems great in theory,
Yeah.
but like he didn't have music, he didn't have anything. He didn't even have an iPod. He didn't bring any technology with him. He was just himself.
I would at least have to have somebody with me, somebody
I'd-
to talk to at least.
Yeah, I'd be talking to fucking rocks and shit before I'd be like Wilson. I'd have a volleyball with a face on it. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he made some relationships on the way throughout it, but like for the most part, he was alone, and I would go nuts. And he started to at the end, when you see what he wrote as he was dying.
Right.
Spoiler, but it was more about how you need human interaction. That's what one of his big
Oh yeah,
lessons
we're
that he
social
learned.
animals, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, he had all this time on his hands, and he was his love for driving. So he would take his wife to work every day. He would drive her because it was icy roads and whatnot in Kansas and during winter. And on the path to her work that he would drive her every day, it would pass the home of a family, the Otero family.
Right.
And he got his eyes on
The mother.
and the daughter, and he liked their dark skin. They were, I believe, Puerto Rican, which is different for Kansas in the 70s. I doubt there was a whole lot. It was probably mainly just white people,
Right.
in this small white, middle America town.
Yeah.
And so he really liked their dark skin, and he became obsessed with.
Yeah, he kind of did. He was kind of going out of his way, making sure he's by the house at a certain time. He was
Yeah.
kind of studying their schedule.
Julie Otero was the mother, and the daughter Josephine, he took a liking to and began to keep an eye on their schedule. He would stalk them, sit on their street.
Right.
This is something that he always did with all of his victims, stalked them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's so creepy. So if you look out your window and you see a strange car sitting there, assume the worst.
Right.
I mean, you can't
He
lose
went
by
to
assuming the worst.
the way he described it in his explanation on YouTube. Once he gets into that stalking stage, like there's no turning back unless just there's a real something that just
Scares them off.
scares them off. Yeah, it has to be something pretty rash at that point because
Right.
because you're trolling at first, you're looking, and then once you find a target, according to him, then you're stalking.
Right.
He made it out like it's some sort of like hidden science of serial killers. I think it makes him feel better. I think it makes him feel not so
That it was out of his
alone and
hands.
so crazy that
Yeah.
like, hey, this is what we do. We're this type of animal. Us serial killers. This is what I just got that vibe from, didn't you? Like when you're watching.
Absolutely.
That?
He looked at himself like this was like a trading baseball cards, and he's now one of the fucking elites.
Yeah.
Like he got off on the fact that he was going to be now listed in the names with Ted Bundy. He brought them up all the time, like the ones that came
Jack
before
the
him.
Ripper, H.H.
Yeah.
Holmes. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that came before him. He said like Ted up in the Northwest. Like,
I'm Ted up in the Northwest.
Yeah, I'm
just spoke with him earlier. We're going to meet up for lunch later.
Right. That's kind of Ted didn't he didn't eat bodies, so that's okay to say. It was Dahmer. He's like, we're meeting up for lunch.
I wish he would have met Dahmer for lunch. Would have saved a lot of people.
Yeah, ended up getting a drill in his head.
Be Dahmer doing some
Dahmer
good.
would win that battle, I think.
Yeah.
If you had a serial killer battle, who do you think's coming out on top?
Dahmer was strong as an ox,
all
bro.
of their
You didn't never hear
tricks to their disposal. You got Gacy with his little rope and pole that he would use.
Gacy had
the
some
rope
weight.
trick. Gacy seemed like
Gacy was corn fed, bro.
Yeah, he was
he
a
was
laborer,
strong.
man. He had that contracting company.
True. Yeah, but Dahmer was no bitch either. He was pretty stout. You
Yeah.
never heard of Dahmer's hands cramping up. That was one thing I kept hearing during the BTK case.
yeah.
He's like, "Oh, my hands were
BTK
so sore after." Like,
There's
what
no
a
doubt
bitch.
BTK goes down early. He's not
What
making
a
the final.
bitch.
He's not making the final four in the battle royale of serial killers.
Dahmer's kicking his ass.
Dahmer's going to be in the final battle.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be Gacy's going to be in there.
Ramirez is probably scrappy as hell.
Dude, yeah, he had tweaker fucking strength.
Yeah, he was scrappy.
Ramirez might be the fucking final victor. Honestly.
I don't know, man. I don't know if Gacy gets his hands around his neck with that rope. Are they allowed to have weapons?
They're allowed to use all their tricks to their disposal. So
all
like,
their tricks?
I guess we'll take guns out though.
Oh, wait a minute. BTK might have a chance then. He's kind of like Jerry on Rick and Morty. He's just so pathetic. They'd feel bad for him.
Right, they'd leave him in the corner by himself.
They'd
And
leave him up there.
He just kind of sneak in at the end.
He would just
put
kinda
a rope around somebody when they're
clean up.
on top of someone else.
Yeah, he was just fucking hiding over in the corner.
Right.
That's so pathetic.
Yeah.
But that's true though. He did have that kind of personality.
Yeah.
He definitely wasn't as assertive as
This
some
is
of
a
the
different
others.
topic for a different day. Maybe we could
It
do a
is.
live chat and discuss who would win in a serial killer battle royale.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. We should like write down all their weapons and stuff that they have.
Yeah,
and
because
things
I'm sure
that
we're
explode.
forgetting some guys that we've studied that would be Robert Hansen. He was an outdoorsman. He might do all right.
Yeah, if he's allowed to have the rifle, it's
Randy
over.
Kraft. If Randy Kraft gets you to drink a cocktail, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, he proposes a toast before the Royale, and they're all dead, and he just walks away.
William Bonin would be scary. That dude
Oh,
was
yeah.
intense. Like just his intensity.
Hey,
alone.
does he get his partner to come with him? Cause
Oh yeah, Vernon Butts.
yeah, does he get old Butts? Butts get to tag along?
I don't know. I guess if you have a tag team duo.
Okay.
I don't know. This is like we said, a different topic for a
Hey,
different day.
in your words, we're getting off the rails.
Not only that, yeah, and we're also leading up to a really tragic event in the story, so it's bad
Yeah.
timing. So we'll get serious for a minute. The Otero family, he'd been keeping an eye on them. The mother, Julie, he really had kind of targeted as his first victim.
Right. His idea was to get a time when she was by herself,
Right.
obviously. I mean, and that's why he was stalking her so many days in a row. He thought that he'd kind of had this
Schedule down.
schedule
Your kids would
down.
go to school. And so on January 15th, 1974, this was a Tuesday morning, All the 4 members of the family were kind of like hanging out in the kitchen, getting their lunches ready. Like the parents were helping the kids get the kids that were still at home. There was 2 or 3 kids that were already off at school. One of them being Charlie Otero, who we talked about already. And so they're all hanging out in the kitchen, and Rader parks at a nearby shopping mall and walks over to the Otero family home, jumps into their backyard. It's a really snowy, cold day, everyone remembers. And he's hanging out in the backyard, and he sees a sign for a dog back there, and that's when he realized, like, fuck, I didn't think this through completely. I didn't think about whether they had a dog. And their dog, people that knew them knew that they had notoriously, like, kind of a sketchy dog. Like, this dog was not to be messed with.
Yeah.
It was Lucky. Kind of a temperamental dog named Lucky. And the dog, however, though, the dog did not like being outside in the cold. I know how that goes. I have dogs that are the same way.
Right.
The dog happened to be inside, so he lucked out there. And once back in the backyard, he did one of his signatures, which was cut the phone line, which is scary, man. That's like horror movie shit.
It is.
He always kept like a knife with him that he would cut the phone line with.
Now keep in mind, like, this is a Tuesday morning. It's like
no one expects
this.
They're all just hanging out in the kitchen. They're getting their lunches ready.
It's hustle and bustle. Everybody's backing around. Oh, you got your book bag? Okay, be careful.
Meanwhile, this
creep is
scumbag
outside.
is in the backyard with this monster is just hanging out in your backyard waiting for an opportunity. He didn't at this point know how he was going to get into the house.
Right.
He didn't know if he was going to break out the back window, which he did on several occasions in other murders later on. So he was not against the idea of just smashing out a window to get inside, but he's kind of like crouched down in the backyard trying to figure out how he's going to get in. And at that moment, Joseph Jr., the youngest son of the family, was asked by his father to take the trash out back. So he grabs a bag of trash and he takes it out back to take it to a can back there.
Right.
And when he opens the door, Dennis spots him, grabs him. He has a .22 caliber gun that he puts to Joseph and takes him inside into the kitchen and confronts the family. And so at first, I guess Joseph, the father, the older Joseph, thought it was some kind of a joke. He asked Rader if his brother-in-law had put him up to this, or they were all kind of just in disbelief.
Like I said, it's
at
the
first.
Timing. It's like if you think if somebody's gonna come into your yard and break into your house, you just don't think Tuesday morning. Like, it's just
right.
And people say, like, oh, it's so crazy. There's no way he overpowered this whole family.
Well, he has a gun.
But if he has a gun to your son's head.
And his demeanor was very much what he would tell pretty much all of his victims. The first thing he would say is that he was a ex-con. He's on the run. He needs food. He needs a car. And he needs any money they can give him. And so that's basically, he would set that precedent right away that I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm here to get what I need and get out.
Exactly.
And that's how he would put their guard down in a sense. They would think, okay, he just wants stuff and then he'll be gone. And so even the parents, even like in these situations where there's kids, he'd get the parents to start calming down their kids and say, it's fine. We'll be fine. We'll just give him what he wants and get him out of here.
Yeah. All the while he's tying them up.
Right. And so at first he tells them Lucky's in the kitchen with everybody. And so he tells somebody to get the dog out. So Joseph Jr. then lets the dog outside, and that's at that point he tells them all to go into the back bedroom, where That's when Joseph Sr. should have made his move right there. Yeah, well, Joseph at this time was messed up from a car accident that he had recently been in.
Oh, really?
He had a messed up shoulder and he had messed up ribs, which is a really chilling moment in this murder
God, I did not know
scenario.
that.
He was supposedly like a Golden Gloves
I know
boxer,
that.
like a championship
That's
boxer.
why I'm wondering why he didn't make a move.
Yeah,
And he had military training.
Ex-military. He was kind of a badass.
He was a badass. Yeah, if he would have been on a good day,
right?
Yeah.
It would have been a scrap. Yeah, so...
Oh, it wouldn't have been a scrap. It would have been an ass whooping, probably.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. So he gets him back there, and he starts tying up the family, and he's telling them still that he's just doing this so that he can keep everybody under control and get what he needs. And at one point, he even... we talked about the injury that Joseph had suffered in the car accident. He asked Joseph, after he gets tied up, Joseph asks Dennis if he can put him in a different spot or if he can untie him from where he was because his ribs were hurting.
Yeah.
Dennis then helped,
he actually made him more comfortable.
This kind of thing happens a lot throughout these murders where you hear the story back and you're like, he like acted like a human being in some scenarios. And then he would immediately afterwards, like he let Joseph get into a more comfortable position.
Right.
He then promptly put a bag over his fucking head and suffocated him,
Well, he doesn't want him dying thinking he's a bad person, Lord.
That's so weird. He's such a coward. He's such a coward. Like
he is.
When face to face to people, he can't even like tell them straight up. Like he can't be a monster even to the people that he's killing to their face. He's too worried about what they think of him in a sense.
That's exactly what he's doing. He's just mirroring what they want.
Such a coward, Like we said, he never sexually assaulted any of them. He never like raped any of the people that he killed.
No.
And it's almost like another I mean, it sounds weird, but it's like almost another cowardly thing where it's like he didn't want them to think he was that terrible.
Yeah, and honestly, he really didn't torture people.
Yeah, they call it bind, torture, kill.
He calls himself that. He didn't really torture people. I think he just didn't want to be called BK like Burger King.
Yeah.
It's like, I need one more letter in there.
BK Lounge.
BK Lounge.
But I mean, it also depends on your idea of torture, because Josephine, we're going to get to in a minute. So we'll talk about it. I mean, in a sense, some of these ways you would not want to be killed in this way.
That's absolutely true.
So it is a form of torture, but it's not like he was deliberately torturing them. It was just a means to an end for him. It was like he wanted their body in a certain position. That's what got him off.
Right.
And so Joseph was just an obstacle for him, the father. And so he would, after getting him tied to, I think Joseph asked to be tied to the bed leg, leg of the bed.
That was a common thing he did to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it was started with Joseph or what, but he would tie their ankles to the bed frame so they couldn't move around the room.
Right. He then put a bag over Joseph's head, a plastic bag, and Joseph started to struggle around on the floor. And at some point, he got the hole poked in the mouth area of the bag.
Well, first he choked him unconscious, though.
Yeah.
The first time he does choke him unconscious, but he later starts moving around and gasping for air, and he bites a hole in the bag.
This whole thing is not going how it's not easy to strangle people. Dennis has realized it takes a long time, and a lot of times it's not like the movies where you choke them for 20 seconds and then they're dead.
Yeah, right.
They pass out from lack of blood flow to their brain. I would assume kind of like an MMA fight when you choke someone out.
Right.
They pass out. And then they come to a couple minutes later. So he would strangle one. They would pass out. He would then move on to another family member.
Yep.
So he's doing this with Josephine, with Joseph Jr. He's doing it with the father, with the mother. And they're all kind of fighting for their lives and begging. They're now realizing that this isn't like, if he wanted our stuff and he was going to leave.
He would have already taken
it.
We're
tied up. He would have just taken. So now they realize what's going on and they're fighting him. They're being choked to the point of passing out. Then they're coming to while the other members are being choked out. This whole thing's just taking way longer than he thought it would. And eventually he would end up putting a bag, plastic, I think he put a pillowcase or a shirt.
He puts a T-shirt over Joseph's head and then puts another bag over top of that. So he can't actually bite through the T-shirt.
There was some talk that he might have identified slightly with Joseph Jr. for whatever reason, and that's why he put like a shirt and then a bag and then another shirt over Joseph Jr.'s head, and is that he didn't want to see him suffering. But I don't buy that. I just think he just wanted.
I think he was just like, he'll definitely not be able to bite through the bag like this.
Yeah, if you think about it, like even if you got your hands,
it was just part of the learning curve.
Yeah. There'd be no way to get all those layers of bags off.
This dude didn't identify with shit.
No. And so basically what happens is after all the struggling goes on, Joseph, the father, is dead. The mother is dead. And the youngest, Joseph, son, is also dead on the floor. Right. The mother's on the bed. The father's on the floor as well. Right. And then Josephine,
but he has other plans for Josephine.
Josephine was kind of the prize that he had wanted. And so he had choked her to unconsciousness. He then took her down. He discovered a door in the kitchen that led to a basement in the home.
Right. He had this obsession with basements.
I think he wanted like a dark place where he couldn't be discovered. Same thing with Barnes. Like he liked like a secluded area where he could go about his darkest secrets and his fantasies and perform them.
Like in his parents' home is where he did a lot of that stuff, like down in the basement.
Right.
He would dress himself up like a girl, tie himself up, take pictures of himself.
Stole his mother's undergarments and would wear those. And
he had like a little remote trigger for the camera. He'd be taking pictures of himself.
Yeah. And so he takes Josephine into the home of the basement of the home. And he would find a water pipe in the basement that was angled in a sense that it was horizontal to where you could hang something from it. Mm-hmm. He then tied her up and fashioned a noose and hung her from the water pipe. And he hung her in a way that her toes were just like a quarter inch from the ground, which we talked about the whole torture thing where it's arguable whether he actually tortured people or not. But in Josephine's case, it was a really horrific way to go, and that
absolutely
it prolonged her asphyxiation because her toes were so close to the ground that she could touch them here and there, and it would just make the process take much longer than it had to as far as being choked out.
Right, and they talked about that in court, how that would put more strain on the body. It would be it would be suffering. You would suffer dying that way.
It would be a sense of torture.
Absolutely.
And he may have gotten off on the fact that it took longer and that she was looking at him knowing that she was helpless. And there was semen found on her leg as well as a puddle found on the ground below her body hanging from the water pipe when the police responded. They found that. And it's just...
It's like, honestly, it's like some 1920s prison torture shit right here that he just did to her, man.
Yeah, I almost wish I hadn't seen the photos, because I've seen the photo of Josephine hanging in the basement.
You'll
They're
never
out there.
forget it. You'll never... Yeah.
Yeah, it is
I'm
something
sure a
that
lot
you'll
of you
never-
have already seen these pictures, but...
Yeah. There's a
it's
lot of
hard to
crime scene
digest.
photos from Dennis Rader out there. You can pretty much see all the Otero family. You can see pictures of their bodies. But just nothing's like that Josephine one, an 11-year-old girl hanging from a water pipe. It's just terrifying.
It is.
This guy's an absolute fucking monster. And so after the deed was done, he then left the house. He took the Otero family car to the shopping mall where he had his car parked, got back in his car, did an inventory of all of his stuff. He always carried a black bag with all the ropes and knife and everything.
Yeah, he called it his hit kit.
His hit kit. And he realized that one thing was missing from his hit kit, which was his knife.
Yeah.
And so he had a little moment of panic, because when he was in the house, he started realizing, like, I think they have more kids. I don't know if there's anyone that's going to be coming home soon. I better get the hell out of here. I've taken way too long.
Yeah.
I didn't plan this out properly. So he kind of like fled the house quickly when it really sunk in after what he had done, and that people might be returning soon. And he was right, and that there were still kids at school that were going to be getting home soon.
Right.
And so when he fled in their car, went to his car, and then he actually drove his own vehicle back to the Otero home, like... The way it's pictured is almost like skidding into the driveway.
Yeah.
When he had realized that it was in the backyard that he had left his knife, when he cut the telephone line, at that exact moment is when Joseph Jr. had walked out back. So he kind of like surprised by someone coming out the door, dropped his knife, and he was able to retrieve the knife, got back in the car, and like burned out leaving the home. And was actually seen, a car was seen burning out leaving the Otero home, which was his own personal vehicle.
But he found time to take a radio too. I don't know how big of a radio this was.
We talked about how he liked to steal things that weren't even like a value. They were just a value in that it was like a memorable.
Yeah. What's funny is like when you're going through these facts and hearing the description from the book or from a documentary or whatever, it seems like he was in a rush and in a hurry. But like when he recalled these events in court, he said that this was one of the ones where he actually had time. And he took his time and searched around and looked for things, and he couldn't really find anything he wanted, so he just took the keys and a radio. And I don't know. It struck me as odd that everybody makes it out like he was in a hurry, but he himself, maybe that's just him bragging, like, oh, I had all the time in the world, so I just kind of went through their stuff, and maybe it makes him feel like he's a better criminal, like more stealthy or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, so, I mean, the first one was ultimately... It was a success in that he didn't get caught. He kept the situation under control, even though it got out of control at moments. It all ended well from his perspective,
right?
And I think he felt as though it was a success in the long run. But however, he kind of marked his triumphs in that how long he got with the body was probably the biggest factor for what he viewed as success. That was the ultimate goal.
That was
to be alone. Was to be alone with this person, whether they were alive and tied up or dead. It didn't matter. He wanted to be able to pose them. It was all about the imagery for him.
I don't think he wanted them alive at all. I think he just wanted them dead and tied up.
Well, yeah, because he didn't want them looking at him.
No.
We talked about how he was a coward, and it was ultimately about the imagery for him. It was all like a painting that he was creating. He wanted them tied up in a specific way, and like it was an algorithm for him, which turned him on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Other than Josephine, there really wasn't that much torture going on. Like I don't think he enjoyed the killing process, honestly.
Right.
It's kind of like Dahmer in that way. Like if he could just find somebody that could just shut off their brain and take photos, I think he would be just as happy with that.
Right.
But then that person would know his past. They would know his secrets, and he just can't deal with that.
But there was also something that he enjoyed about them being alive and being tied up and unable to move that got him off as well.
Maybe if the woman was alone.
Right.
But if there was someone else there, he didn't care about that so much. That wasn't the most important thing.
Right.
But I'm sure he did enjoy that a little bit, being in control of the situation and whatnot.
So the Otero family murder goes down. The town of Wichita goes kind of crazy because nothing like this is not commonplace for a family of 4 to be murdered in their home like this on a Tuesday.
Since what, the 40s?
Yeah, like on a Tuesday morning. Yeah, that's something that was brought up by Charlie Otero later on. Is the book In Cold Blood by Truman Capote about the murder of a family of 4 in Kansas, like in the 50s, I believe.
Yeah.
There was a movie based on that book that was on television a couple nights before this happened, and Charlie Otero watched it, and he felt as though that maybe the killer, whoever did this to his family of 4, was maybe
Listen, man, if that movie can inspire somebody to do that,
right.
No, that's just.
I think
he's just grasping.
I think Charlie was just grasping for any understanding other than just a weirdo came in their house in the middle of the day and did this to his family. He wants it to be more of a conspiracy than it really was.
Absolutely.
All right, so after that success, he continued to stalk people, which he viewed as, he called them projects.
Right.
He almost had like a list of certain people that he would stalk, and if they fit the right criteria, he really was trying to avoid men at this point. He wanted to find women that were alone.
Right.
But he had failed in the first one.
Yeah.
He'd failed with Joseph Otero being there.
Yeah.
Kind of caused some trouble for him. And on this one, he would end up failing as well. But this is more just coincidence. So on April 4th, 1974, he had been observing a woman named Catherine Bright, known as Kathy. He had seen her entering her home one day as he drove through the streets of Wichita. That's all it took for him.
That's all
he had to do was see a girl, and if she looked like someone he wanted to see tied up, it just like it infiltrated his brain, and he couldn't let it go. And he would just keep watching them. He then, on April 4th, he would break into her home through a window in the back and waited for her to return, something he would do quite often. He'd cut the phone line, break in through a back window, and just sit and wait for them to return. Catherine, however, had been out with her brother that day. Her brother lived in another town with his parents. He was a younger brother of hers. His name was Kevin. He came to stay with her for one night, and he wanted her basically to go to the bank with him and help get a loan for he had like this invention idea, and he needed funding for it.
Oh,
and so,
damn. What was it?
I would like to know. Like,
right.
Maybe it was like the fucking
ShamWow
or something. Yeah, something.
Slap Chop, probably.
Yeah, Billy Mays would have been advertising. Who knows? This was the 70s. He could have been
Still
ahead of
his
the curve.
OxyClean idea.
Right? Could have been something real silly like Snuggie or something. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. So she had taken him to the bank that morning, and that's where she was while B.T.K. was sitting inside her house waiting. And so Kevin, by the way, got declined on his loan.
Damn it.
So this is a bad day for him in general. So they return home. She walks in, and Kevin walks in with her, and B.T.K. is kind of caught off guard by this.
Right.
He still does his routine. He pulls his gun out. He tells them that he's there for money, a car to get away in,
He's
and
a fugitive
food.
on the run.
Fugitive on the run. He gives them that whole spiel. He takes them into a bedroom and ties up Catherine and tied up Kevin to a bedpost. He then took Catherine into another room and
I think he had Kevin tie up Catherine, didn't he?
Yeah, sometimes he did that. He would have one member of a family tie up the other one.
Mm-hmm. And then he took Kevin to the other room and then tied him up and then tied him to the bedpost.
Right. However, when he went back into the bedroom with Catherine, Kevin escaped from his ropes that were tying him up and entered the bedroom and got into a battle with Rader, in which he ended up being shot in the forehead with a .22 caliber slug. Now this guy must have. We talked about this in the Green Bay Pack-a-Killa case, where some people have thicker skulls. But maybe he had some like shitty rounds in his .22. A .22 is not the strongest caliber bullet anyway.
Right, exactly.
That's what I was about to say. It reflected off of Kevin's forehead, but it knocked him out. And of course, both Dennis Rader and his sister Catherine thought that he was dead. Catherine begins screaming, "You shot my brother!" At which point he goes back to going to work on her, strangling her.
Right.
In the midst of him,
Kevin rises from the ashes.
Kevin is one tough son of a bitch.
He is.
Kevin then wakes up from being shot in the forehead.
Yeah.
Gets into another scrum with B.T.K. again, where he's subsequently shot again. This time in the mouth. In the mouth. I believe it took out some of his teeth and then it exited from his mouth. God. He goes down again, comes back to life in the middle of this again.
What is he, fucking Wolverine?
Right.
This guy's an animal.
And at this point, he decides that fighting with this guy is not working out because he keeps getting shot.
Right.
And he ends up staggering out the front door, covered in blood,
yeah,
and is running down the street. And at this point, B.T.K. has successfully strangled Catherine unconscious.
Right. And you have to know at this point, I mean, this guy's got nothing left to fight. If he goes in there and tries to fight him now, because that's the first thing I thought about. I was like, man, how could he leave his sister in there with this killer? Like, even in that condition, but in that condition, they're both just going to die. If he doesn't go get help from somebody, if he doesn't, because he's been shot in the face twice.
Right.
Like, he probably can't even see. There's probably blood in his eyes and shit. Like, his heart's probably pounding. He would be no good in a fight at this point.
Right.
And so he makes the decision to go out and try to get help, which must have been just as difficult.
Right.
I mean, to leave his sister there.
Right.
Real quick, did this exact almost exact thing not happen with Richard Ramirez? Didn't he? When I was hearing this story, I was like, I've heard this already.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Richard Ramirez had a very similar encounter with a brother and sister where he separated them.
It may have. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
It was a while ago that we did the Richard Ramirez episodes, and he killed so many people that it's hard to.
I'm pretty sure he did. It was almost
His body count was a lot higher.
Scenario.
So
he tied up the brother because he didn't want to deal with him.
Right.
And then he shot him, and then the guy wasn't dead. And he came back, and they got into a big fight.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I kept getting like deja vu listening to this story, and I was like, maybe I've already heard this one.
Right.
I've heard this. Crime
Well, the Brights were just they were just a tough group because Catherine, he ended up having to stab Catherine because choking her out wasn't working. Like she kept coming to as well.
Yeah.
And fighting with him, like tooth and nail, just fighting with him to the point where he ended up stabbing her 11 times in the abdomen. And then because he saw Kevin, he heard the door open in the front and Kevin running out. He went out, looked out the window and saw a bloody Kevin running down the street. He realized, okay, I've got to get the hell out of here.
Right.
And after stabbing Catherine, he then fled the home. Kevin was flagged down. He flagged down a vehicle driving down the street, told the guy what had happened, jumped in the car. They drove to a local hardware store where they called the police. And the police would arrive, and sadly, Catherine would still be alive when the police arrived, obviously on death's door,
right,
where she was transferred to the hospital and died not long after.
She couldn't even speak because he had crushed her larynx, right?
Something that's real sad is after B.T.K. ran off and her brother was gone, she crawled to the phone and called the operator.
Yeah.
Because at this day, they didn't have a 911 number yet.
Right.
That didn't even exist. So she called the operator and was trying to tell the operator what was going on, but her larynx...
but she couldn't.
Yeah, her larynx had been crushed from the choking. And so all that the operator could hear was just, somebody making noises on the phone.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's got to be a helpless feeling because if she could have just given an address or something instead of them having to trace the call and all that, who knows?
Yeah, so even with all of BTK's excessive planning for what he thought was all this planning to make things go smoothly, his first two didn't go smooth by any means. However, he had managed to get away, and he had now climbed his body count to 5 in 2 separate events. And in October of 1974, with all the pressure on the police with these random murders that are going on, 3 men had stepped forward and tried to take credit for the Otero murders. And an editor of the Wichita Eagle newspaper received a phone call directing him to a hidden letter in an engineering book at the Wichita Public Library. This was BTK not wanting other people to take credit for his work. So he reached out to the news, the local newspaper, the Wichita Eagle, and he had gone to the local library and put a letter in a book for the police to discover.
Right.
The newspaper editor notified the police, who then went to the library and found the letter. Inside the letter was a lot of interesting stuff and plenty of proof for them to know that they had the wrong guys in custody because the guy who had done these murders was undoubtedly the person who wrote this letter.
Right. He knew details that no one else could have known.
Yeah. So here's a quote from the letter. I wrote this letter to you for the sake of the taxpayers as well as your time. Those three dude you have in custody are just talking to get publicity for the Otero murders. They know nothing at all. I did it by myself and no one's help. There has been no talk either. Let's put it straight. And then there was detailed descriptions, drawings.
He told the stuff that he stole. He said that the radio was missing, the keys were gone, the car was moved, all that.
Yeah, the locations of the bodies, the placement of the bodies.
The way they were killed. Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that there was semen in the basement, all that stuff was detailed in his letters. And also he said, I'm sorry this happened to society. Good luck with your hunting. Yours truly, guilty. P.S. Since sex criminals do not change their MO or by nature cannot do so, I will not change mine. The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them. BTK, UCB at it again. They will be on the next victim.
It's the way he writes this freaking trips me out. I'm like, you have all the time in the world to write this.
Right.
Like, I think he's just so excited to write it.
Mm-hmm.
That he's just
and he wants a moniker so bad.
Yeah.
He wants to be one of
It's so pathetic because he's like, since sex criminals do not change their MO or by nature cannot do so. At least that's what I've read.
Right. And what's funny is that one of the things that made it so hard for him to catch is that he, like, all of his crime scenes were such a mess and like nothing ever went routinely.
Right.
It was just so hard to like connect some of these murderers because he did things differently so often.
Yeah.
The only thing that was really consistent was the rope, but then sometimes like by the time the police got there, a family member would have, like in the Otero murders, the older sibling had come home and found his father and his mother, he took a knife, and there was a knife found at the next to the bodies that the son had brought in there to cut off the ropes, because he didn't like seeing his mother and all tied up, his father all tied up. Yeah, so sometimes like the bodies would be so disturbed and the ropes would be missing, because people were trying to be resuscitated by EMTs and whatnot. That it would be hard to connect these killings together.
And sometimes he brought his own stuff, sometimes he didn't. He forgot or whatever, at least according to his confession.
Right.
So, who knows?
So in November of 1974, Dennis Rader finally found a steady job with ADT Security.
Oh, perfect.
And you guys know ADT. It's a company specializing in the installation of alarm systems, the stuff that's supposed to protect you from this very type of person.
They hire serial killers. No, I'm just kidding. They don't.
He would end up staying with ADT for the next 14 years and rose to the position of installer supervisor, which gave him freedom to roam around town, stalk. His lunch breaks would be filled with cruising the streets looking for his next victims. And
I don't know
it's
if you
just
know this, Paula, but I'm a security supervisor now.
Right. It's just terrifying to know this guy's inside these people's houses, knowing that people would report their underwear coming up missing. And there was one story I heard that he told where he installed a security system for this woman. And the reasoning that she wanted to put one in is her ex-boyfriend had been stalking her. She let him know this. Yeah. He installs this security system, and he actually created a loophole for him to where he could then come back and break in and not set off the alarm, set up a code or whatever in a way that he knew how to get into it.
I bet he did.
In case he decided to make her his next victim. I'm sure he did.
Yeah, he did that at tons of houses.
Probably just about every one of them.
Yeah, especially if they were a woman living alone or maybe just dating, you know, so there wasn't a male presence in the house all the time or whatever.
Yeah, we talked about it before the show. Like, we don't ever want anyone we don't know in our house, no matter who they work for. Like, you can't, I don't care how, like,
cable guy
prestigious the company is. Like, I'm having shutters installed in my house in like the next week.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a really reputable company and everything.
Yeah.
Reputable company.
Reputable, yeah.
They have full-time employees. They're not like...
But you're still going to be watching them like a damn hog.
Yeah, no, I took the day off work so I could be here and watch and keep my eyes on them because, and I'm not letting them get friendly with my dogs. My dogs are going to be locked outside so that they don't know whether my dogs are violent or not.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not even telling you guys.
That's a good... They are.
Right, they're vicious. I can't even have my kid around them.
Right.
No. But yeah, just don't ever trust anyone in your house because ultimately people are flawed. We know this after studying this show enough. Yeah. It doesn't matter who they work for. They're still human beings and they still have urges and you just don't know what kind of person they are.
And when no one's looking, it's like,
I mean, the woman that was married to this guy for, however many years didn't even know who he was.
Nope. Not a clue.
She was living under the same house with him, had kids with him, had no idea what kind of person this guy was. So yeah, just because someone's wearing a uniform, don't trust them.
No.
And that was the way that he would use to gain entry sometimes. He would pretend to be a phone employee, which we'll get to.
Yeah, they had to inspect phone lines.
Right. Just never let a stranger in your house. I'm sure you guys know this, creepers.
Yeah. You're as paranoid as we are, I'm sure.
Right. So yeah, they received a letter. He gets the job with ADT. And now he's roaming the streets. But there was kind of a gap here. There was no known murders from 1975 to 1976, probably because the last one went so bad, and he just...
Yeah, he needed a break.
Yeah, I think he needed a break. And then just times got busy for him. He had his first child in 1975.
He had things occupying his mind. His thoughts were stimulated.
So he had his first child, and then he had a full schedule between ADT and night school at WSU. So... 1975, 1976, things go quiet. Then in March of 1977, he decided it was time for another murder. The urges came back around, what he called
Rex.
Factor X.
Yeah.
He called Factor X was what drove serial killers like him and Ted Up in the Northwest. And
Ted Up in the Northwest. I'm going to refer to him forever.
Right. It was always just a matter of time until Factor X became too overwhelming and they had to fulfill the urges again.
Didn't he nickname it Rex, like the demon inside him, supposedly?
Yeah.
It's what he called it, Rex.
Rex was Factor X.
Yeah. Like anytime the cops would refer to him, he would always say, use my name, Rex.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's kind of strange.
Yeah. So March of 1977, he had been trolling in a particular neighborhood and found heavily that had some women in mind there. He met a woman named Cheryl in a bar that he'd gone to. I forget what it's called. They brought up the bar a few times in the book. It was like
I don't know the name of it.
Black Hole Bar or some shit. It was a real seedy sounding bar, real hole in the wall sounding place.
Right.
And he would frequent this bar, and he had met a woman named Cheryl, and had chosen her to be his next target. So this is kind of like the first target that wasn't a complete stranger. Like this woman was actually aware of his existence.
Yeah.
Seen him at the bar, talked to him. Cheryl was renting a house with another woman and often had parties at that house in those days. Rader found out where she lived. He would use the phone book. He would talk to people that knew the person at times to figure out the name. Then he would find out where they lived, find out their phone number, these type of things. He found out where she lived, and it would be a go in his mind. He kind of targeted this. This was the one.
That's it.
Fortunately,
Stalker mode.
However, fortunately, on the day that he chose, Cheryl and her friends, no one was home when Rader came around that day. And he states that he'd also cased another home in the neighborhood, but no one was home there either. So he's chosen at this point, like he should have known better, because like he'd chosen this day was just going to be the day he was going to kill somebody, and he almost he didn't stick to his plan. He just immediately, okay, no one's home, let's move on to another house on the streets. Like that kind of.
You know what I think he does? I think he tries to fight it, the urge, as long as he possibly can.
And then once he accepts that it's going to happen.
Yeah, once he accepts that it's going to happen on this day, he's like, oh, I have to do it this day. I'm going to fucking explode.
Right.
So, and that's why he makes bad decisions and
Yeah.
rash ones and jumps to conclusions,
Yeah,
breaks
'cause
in homes. where
on this
people
street, he had 2 potential targets that he had planned out, right?
Yeah.
2 houses he'd been scouting out with people. Neither of them are home. And instead of doing what he had done in the past, which is break in and sit in the house and wait for him to return, he just started walking down the street. And this is really tragic how this ends up happening, because it was just so. It probably shouldn't have happened to the person that happened to. It shouldn't have happened to the other person either. But it's kind of weird how it happened. So he starts walking down the street looking for an opportunity, and he was trolling down on foot on Hydraulic Street and encountered a 5-year-old boy named Steve Relford. He was in the documentary we talked about.
Yeah.
He pulled out a photo of his own wife and son, being Rader. He pulled out a picture of his family and asked Steve if he knew who they were. Now, this is just a way of him kind of gaining this kid's trust, just a conversation. Sometimes with a child, they want to believe the best in a person, to just,
of course,
any chance to talk to the kid, he viewed it as a reason. Like the kid might start to trust him.
He also tried to give off a vibe of authority too. Like I'm a detective kind of thing too. Yeah, he was like, hey, I'm looking for these people. Have you seen these people?
Right.
He wasn't just like some random guy. I mean, I think he was posing as a detective or an officer of some sort at this point.
Yeah. Well, this kid, Steve Relford, 5-year-old, he was the son of Shirley Vian, a 24-year-old mother who was actually had stayed home sick from work that day. She was really ill, and she was sending out her son, Steve, to go run to the store and get medicine for her, which was something that she'd already called ahead to the store. She was a good mother. This is the 70s. She had called ahead to the store and let them know that the kid was coming. And so that's why he was out of the house when Dennis ran into this kid.
Right.
And so when he saw where the boy lived, he posed as a private detective looking for someone to force his way into the house. He then rang the doorbell. Steven answered the door later on, and he asked if his mother was home.
Yeah.
He said she was. He then forced his way into the house, pulled out the gun, and confronted the kids in the living room.
She had other kids.
Yeah, she had a daughter that was watching TV in the living room. Shirley was in the back room, and he said ill. When she heard a man in the house, she knew that wasn't supposed to happen, and so she comes running out to confront this strange man that is now inside the house. He then put her at gunpoint, forced her into a bedroom.
Yeah. He put the kids
after
all in a
he had
bathroom,
locked the kids in the bed. Yeah, he locked the kids in a bathroom, and he tied a rope to the door to make sure because there was two doors in the bathroom at this time.
Right.
Now, one of the documentaries I watched on YouTube, it took you back to a couple of houses. This was one. They took you into Shirley Vian's house, and they took you into the Otero home, which is unbelievable to me that house is still standing. Just to get sidetracked,
that people are living in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't imagine going down in that basement.
If you're living in that house,
knowing that an 11-year-old girl was hung
like.
from that by a notorious serial killer.
Yeah. Every time you go down there, I mean, because
that place should have been demolished immediately. A lot of the houses of some of the other houses of victims that were killed by this guy were immediately demolished I feel like they should be. I don't know. I don't really believe in the supernatural per se, but I couldn't get the dark images out of my head. Like, how could you ever get comfortable? How can you not? I just don't know how you could go in that basement and not see that girl or think of her. Like, that's just depressing every time you go down there, you know?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not saying that
you ignore it, or you completely remodel the place.
Maybe you got it at a discount. You're just a business person. Or,
you're just trying to flip it.
I know that.
But don't you have to disclose that information?
Yeah. As far as I know, maybe it's a state-by-state thing, but I know in Nevada you have to disclose any crimes that had occurred in that home. So he takes Shirley Vian into the bedroom where he then, and they had a conversation. Shirley was trying to keep this guy calm. He told her that he was going to rape her. And she said, well, can I have a cigarette? They had this conversation. She told him she was sick. She went into the bathroom at one point to like clean up or something like that.
Yeah.
And when she came back out, he then tied her up and put a plastic bag over her head and strangled her. The children, the phone kept ringing during this. This whole thing was a mess for him. Once again, he didn't get the time that he wanted alone with the person that he was targeting.
Right.
Which was Shirley Vian. He's got these kids screaming in the bathroom. One of them's trying to force his way out of the bathroom. He has to go back over it and like lock it again.
Let me ask you something, dude. If one of these, real quick, if one of these people would have just resisted and fought him, do you think that he would have shot them? I don't think he would have shot him. Like, I don't think he would have just shot them and left.
Well, the brother of the bride, like
the fact that he had no choice there. He was
fighting with him, like you said.
I don't know.
You mean the person that he was targeting, say Shirley, if she started to fight with him, do you think he would have shot her? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because he wants the joy of like killing her in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he...
But he was also able to
Maybe not.
overpower the women that he was targeting generally, so...
But just the way
he
that
didn't have to shoot them.
I don't know. The way he accommodated some of these people is just interesting to me. I feel
He
like
wanted
if
the
they would
control.
have pushed a little more...
He wanted the control over them, the power over them, so that was part of it. And shooting them kind of takes that away from him. It's like it just disables them right away, and it was no fun for him.
Right. But the way that she said, oh, I'm sick, I need to go throw up and have a cigarette and what, like he was perfectly cool with that. He's like, yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Like, see what I mean? Like accommodating him in that way. I feel like there's ways to get the leg up on him.
Like with Joseph when he said his ribs hurt and he actually like, it's just so much creepier and more chilling that he would like be nice to them for that one moment and then immediately like put a bag over their head.
Yeah. Why don't you just tell him like, oh, I'm going to go to the closet and put on something more comfortable and just go get the fucking gun you hid in there and blow his ass away. Like I feel like there was ways that this could have been.
You could have used him.
You could have used his his niceness in a way, or
say, conveniently, if Joseph Otero had a gun under his bed, if he said like, "Can you tie my feet to the bedpost?" and then grab the gun.
Exactly.
I mean, in a perfect world,
he let this girl go to the bathroom by herself before she was. I mean.
Now, that's interesting you bring that up because the kids ended up escaping through a tiny bathroom window. The older brother of the children, Steve Relford, he broke out a little window in the bathroom and was able to get his siblings out. And later on in a letter, B.T.K. would say that those kids were going to die had the phone not kept ringing and had he not just like not felt good about the whole situation and wanted to get out of there.
Yeah.
And so he would end up strangling Shirley Vian, killing her. And he was going to kill the kids, but because the phone wouldn't shut up and like the kids wouldn't shut up, he just had enough of it and ran off. And then shortly after they broke out and ran to a neighbor to report what had happened to their mother.
Right.
And he would end up leaving semen on panties found next to Shirley Vian's body. So he's leaving all this DNA evidence to later help bring him down because they didn't have the means to. He wasn't a secretor. You know, we talked about secretors with the Green Bay Packakilla. There was a small percentage of people that through semen you could find the blood type. He wasn't, unfortunately, a secretor, so they weren't able to tie his blood type, and they weren't able to match DNA yet to people. So they were holding on to that for later hopes that they could advance enough to, and eventually
I heard
they
that
would.
You can even the people that do are secretors.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
not a perfect science still.
Well,
it
not
wasn't
only that,
at the time.
you're on a limited time.
Yeah.
So like after a certain amount of time, all semen reads the same blood type or something like that. It all reads like O positive or something.
Right, and it only narrows you down a certain amount too. Yeah. But I mean, if you could say that, okay, there's a certain amount of people are secretors, which is a small percentage, and then of that, if you find out the blood type, if they're a secretor and they're that blood type, it's like that narrows it down quite a bit.
But even if
you still have to have a
be
suspect.
Fast. You have to be pretty quick too.
You have to be quick, and then you have to have a suspect to match it too. You know, you have to find a suspect to take the blood of and find out. Yeah, so I mean, they had no suspects.
Right. It's like leaving DNA when your DNA is not on file or anything. Yeah.
Right. Now, after the layoff, he had killed Shirley Vian. Her kids narrowly escaped. It was a mess. Right. It was a mess.
Another mess.
But his next one was going to be like the Holy Grail. This was the one that he kind of hung his hat on. This was the perfect scenario. He stalked this girl for months.
Yeah, he made sure this was the perfect scenario. I think he was tired of
the sloppy work.
Surprised. Yeah.
No
kids.
He made sure that she had no man, no kids. Yeah, she lived alone. She lived in this duplex. She was 25 years old. He had been stalking the residence for a while. He broke into her duplex via rear window.
Yeah, it was like a bedroom window, right?
Bedroom window, and a confrontation had happened in the kitchen.
Right.
And where he told her that he had a sexual problem and that he was going to rape her. And
that's it, though.
Kind of
But
like
that's
Shirley
what he
Vian,
said.
she
He was
kind of
like-
tried to play along with him and not get him angry.
Right.
You know, she said, okay, let's kind of get this over with or whatever.
Right.
He then led her to the bedroom. She went to the bathroom briefly and came out. And when she came out, he tied her up and told her that he was B.T.K. He was responsible for the Otero murders, which is just horrifying. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't know. It kind of was like a chilling detail for me that he had to make it clear like who he was when he was about to kill her.
But he never told anybody
Must have
until
been
they
a
were
hopeless-
already tied up.
Right. It must have been a hopeless moment for her. Like, oh, there's no
Oh,
way that he's
fuck.
not going to try and kill me now.
Yeah. Telling her that. Yeah. He never wore a mask either.
Yeah.
So they knew his face.
Yeah.
I think he was naked at this time too, or at least from the waist down.
Yeah.
This is what he said in the confession, that once he sent her to the bathroom, he also got undressed. And so
Well, I
she
think
came
leading
out
up-
to a half naked man telling her that he's BTK.
The book kind of talked about, like in his writings and stuff, it sounds like he would go into these with plans to rape, but when it came time, I don't know if he was incapable or what. It's not that I don't think that he had a problem getting an erection. It's just that he just didn't
It's
need to do it, or I don't know.
It's the moral thing for him with the church. Like, rape is wrong. Cheating on my wife is wrong. But if I kill you, then no one knows about it. Therefore, then it didn't happen.
Right.
I don't see how he convinced himself that he believed in God and an omnipotent God and an all-knowing God, and then he tries to hide this
Right.
from people. Like, if that's what you believe, then you would believe that he could see you all the time, right? I mean, I don't get how.
Do you think he believed? Do you think he really believed, or
It just depended on
just
who
went
he-
along
that's
with it
why
for the image?
Obviously, I don't think he believed that, or he wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, that's just what he said. It's just an easy way to write that shit off.
Yeah.
Like anybody that tried to come to his rescue saying, oh, well, he was such a devoted church member and he was president and
Right.
he helped people. Like, okay, well, what about this?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it just doesn't add up.
Yeah. He would end up strangling her to death with a ligature and left semen deposited on a nightgown found next to the body. So must have masturbated rather than actually assault the body.
Right. This one was interesting because he used his stuff. He used his belt and handcuffs, but then he didn't leave those there. Like he put pantyhose around her neck and tied her up with that after she was already dead.
Yeah.
Like probably for picture's sake. Now that I think about it,
Like we
for
said, it was
picture's sake,
all
right.
That's what it was about. He took pictures of all this stuff,
Yeah,
and that's why he was able to take long gaps between murders.
Well, I was just thinking that at first he might have done it just because he didn't want to leave anything personal behind, but it's probably definitely more for the picture's sake.
Oh, he was a visual killer. That's all
Right.
it came down to. Some people are audio killers, and he was a visual killer. Everything had to look perfect for him, and usually that would mean he would arrange the body in a manner after killing them.
I think
if he had to.
I think he had a little OCD.
Oh,
Anyways,
100%.
you know?
They said he was
Yeah.
all about control. Everything was super organized, like at his church.
Right.
Everything, like if he had a suitcase, everything was meticulously
I
organized.
imagine him like to them. You ever meet those people who are just like extremely busy all the time? They're just always
Yeah.
wanting to please, wanting to do things, and it's like, what's really on your mind? Like, what are you trying to
What are you
distract
trying to run
yourself
from?
from? Yeah, it's like just take a break, man. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's like chill out.
Yeah. Well, this one he claimed was his favorite because he actually got time. Like there was no distractions. He got time to be alone
Yeah.
with the body and do what he needed to do. And there was no male there. There was no animals. There was no nothing. It was just him and Nancy Fox. And he was so proud of himself that he couldn't wait to brag about it in a sense. Because the following morning, after reporting to work for ADT, he left the office in a company van. He went to a job with coworkers and whatnot and made an excuse to leave for a bit from the job, where he
Right.
then proceeded to go to a payphone at I believe a grocery store.
Yep.
And dialed the police and said, yes, you will find a homicide at the home of 843 South Pershing, Nancy Fox. And there was a little bit of a miscommunication between him and the operator, who didn't clearly hear the address. Someone else on the line said, I believe that's 843 South Pershing. And he said, that's correct. And then dramatically left the phone dangling like a movie.
Actually, I don't think that was true. I think in my book they described it different.
What, the call? Because
Yeah.
you can actually hear the call. So
Oh, really?
that is exactly
Well,
what happened.
they said that the operator was just faking, like they couldn't understand to keep
Maybe
the phone,
not. Maybe
keep
they
him
were
on
in
the phone a little
disbelief.
bit more.
Possibly the operator was in disbelief of what they had just heard. Because I mean, we talked about how they didn't have actual 911 operators yet.
You think operator is really surprised by something like that, though? The shit that they
Maybe she
hear
was
on
new.
the daily.
I don't know. Because the person in the background was like, I believe that's 843. Like, heard it just fine.
Yeah.
So might have been playing dumb.
Or maybe she was like, oh, that was the new person. Probably the person that said, hey, I believe that's, shut the fuck up. We're
Right.
trying to track this dude.
Trying to keep him on the line. Trying to get more information. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. And what was crazy is that there was a guy who had walked up to the payphone just before Rader or during Rader's conversation.
Yeah.
Saw him in there, realized that he didn't have any change, ran into the store to get change. And when he came back out, the phone was dangling. He then picked it up and the operators were still on the line. And they then asked for like a description. They had then notified the police and the police were asking this guy who'd picked up the phone for a description of the guy who was just there.
Yeah.
And he gave basically the same description that everyone that had ever witnessed Dennis Rader, a very just nondescript. He looked like a dude, just a dude with dark hair.
He was everybody else. Yeah. He
Yeah.
just, I mean, very basic Midwestern male, man.
Like the kids at the
Male
Vian
pattern,
household.
baldness, glasses, mustache.
The kids at the Vian household said that he was a dude about mommy's age, like a male. They didn't have like any real details that could distinguish him from anyone else.
Yeah.
As just a dude in his 30s. Wow. So, yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of help, unfortunately, with that phone call. But he did put himself out there. He kind of felt stupid for doing it. He kind of let his emotions get the better of him. He wanted so badly to get credit for this one.
Yeah.
And so the police responded and found the body of Nancy Fox. And they would begin playing the recording from the phone call to the operator on the news. And there was also another moment where the book that I read stated that there was a moment between Dennis and his wife where she was standing there hearing the recording and said, that sounds an awful lot like you. Like we saw, like she had to have some suspicion.
Okay,
because
listen.
She just
So
kept
she
saying,
finds the writing. She's
Right.
like, he writes
Looks
like you.
yours. He sounds like you.
Sounds like you.
Right? I found those weird drawings you made. Right. We'll get to another awkward moment between him and his wife soon in the story.
Oh, yeah.
And so he wanting credit for this one more so than just like he made the call and they still weren't necessarily connecting it to the B.T.K. Strangler, this
Right.
latest one, Nancy Fox. And so 2 months later, a package was delivered to KAKE, Cake 10 News, local Wichita news. The package contained a poem called "Oh, Death to Nancy." It was a very corny poem that he had written. He wasn't the best poet, wasn't a great writer, was not good at spelling, was just not, not a great, smart guy.
Not good.
The letter also took full responsibility for the Otero, Shirley Vian, and Nancy Fox murders, plus an unnamed seventh victim, which they later connected to be Kathy Bright. Because, like we said, these crime scenes were so messy at times where like ligatures had been removed because the family members would come home and like cut them off of their family member to try and save them, or the EMTs would show up and take these off to try and revive the person or whatever, and then so they were unable to connect these motivating factors for the killer, which usually link killings together, and you create a serial killer image. So then they later found out that Catherine Bright was one of his victims as well through these letters. The writer suggested some new names for himself, which I don't know why. He's already been putting BTK on him. It's like, why not just roll with that, man? That's what they're calling you. It's working out just fine. But he had some other ones in mind.
He changed his mind. Listen, your first idea is rarely your best.
Right, but I mean, these are just shit.
They are shit.
So some of the suggestions he put in the letter: the Wichita Strangler, that's okay. The Poetic Strangler.
Oh my god!
Because of his just beautifully written poems like "Oh Nancy," "Oh Death to Nancy," the Asphyxiator, which sounds like a bad, like low-level wrestler.
The Asphyxiator,
right? You got some corny wrestling match.
Asphyxiator.
Right. What is that? The Garrote Phantom. The Garrote Phantom.
I don't even know what
that's in reference to. The Bondage Strangler, which it's on the nose. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes more sense than torture, the BTK bind, torture, kill, because he really, like we said, he didn't really torture per se,
right?
In like the historical sense of what torture is.
Okay, garrote is to kill someone by strangulation.
Oh, okay. God, that's just no one even knows what the word means. We had to Google it. Like you don't want to have to Google.
You don't want to have to Google it,
right?
Wait. Oh, okay. So you're like you're the strangling phantom,
right?
That's pretty much what he could have been, like the Phantom Strangler.
He could. I could see the Bondage Strangler and then go by TBS and really just ruin their whole product. Ruin their whole product.
That would ruin it.
And the Wichita Hangman, which that's okay. I'd say a good half of
man.
these are just garbage. The Asphyxiator and the Poetic Strangler, those are just, and
Yeah,
then the
those are
Garrote
garbage.
Phantom, garbage.
He really thought he was more artsy than what he was. He did have a little bit of artistic ability as far as drawing,
Yeah,
but it's
because he did so. He
poetry?
practiced it so much.
yikes.
This is also the first letter in which he mentioned Factor X, which we kind of discussed, which is later discovered to be just a demon, is what he meant, the inner demon, which forces you to kill.
But isn't that just the generic term that psychiatrists had used to say why serial killers kill, because it's not a certain thing for everyone?
Right.
So it's Factor X. So that just shows you like what
He
a
was
blatant copycat he is.
He's just corny and unoriginal.
He is.
He really is. I mean, later on, a woman that would become friends with him when he got locked up.
Yeah.
He would give her exclusivity to as far as like interviews and whatnot. Anyone that wanted to interview with him would have to go through her.
Okay.
She was going to write a book on him and whatnot. It just shows you how corny they are, because like he gave her like code words, like, okay, you talk to, because she would end up talking to John Douglas and give
Right.
him the right to talk to him. So John
Yeah.
Douglas would end up interviewing him in prison, and like she had to like give John Douglas these stupid code words.
Oh my God.
Like the lion is strong, like,
Oh my
in order
God.
to like let Dennis Rader know how much he should tell John Douglas, depending on what code word she gave him. Like just stupid shit. Like
What a bunch of bullshit.
He's just corny.
He really. Oh, that's something we glossed over, is the fact that like during these murders and stuff, while he was creeping around, he liked to envision himself in movies. Like it was like B.T.K. Productions, like he was almost like a James Bond or like a John Wayne character. I'm like, how dare you?
Right.
How
Well, I mean,
fucking
Richard
dare
Ramirez
you?
thought he was like in a metal band video or something, and he's rolling around listening to AC/DC and like,
Yeah,
you know, with the sunglasses at night. And
yeah,
like,
but Richard
he
Ramirez was
meth.
kind of doing his own thing, though.
He was also on meth.
He was kind of doing his own thing.
Yeah.
Like he was taking these song lyrics and being inspired, but BTK, Dennis Rader was just copying people. Just everything he did. He was just a chameleon. He just wanted to put out there what he thought people wanted to see or what would make him look cool or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like a lot less cool Walter White. You know what I mean? It's like a guy that just got tired. Nothing new was in his life. It was super mundane. And then he had these urges and he wanted to give into them, and he wanted to feel important. He wanted to feel like somebody who mattered.
But I mean, I think Walter White came to that realization much later in life, whereas BTK, I mean, Dennis he had these dark images from the time he was 3, and he really did have some like sick fantasies from the time he was a child.
Yeah.
That is undeniable. I mean, there's literally letters and stuff from when he was in elementary school, and like, you know, these little poems he was writing, and these pictures of him drawing up girls. I mean, he had a real,
but he was
he
fine
had a real
for a
issue.
long time, though,
He was, yeah.
as far as acting on it.
We talked about if he was distracted enough, if he had enough going on, then he could just live off just the fantasies alone without actually having to kill anyone.
Yeah.
But he never ended. I mean, even when he's at work, he's got like, for instance, when he's working for ADT,
yeah.
he's driving around and he's got like what he would call paper slaves. He's got pictures of women that he'd cut out of magazines, and he would fantasize about that woman being his captive, and he would keep the picture of them, and like he would alter the pictures to where they were like pictures of tied up.
Right.
He'd put their head on those, and like every day he was dealing with this inner struggle of this fantasy world. But sometimes it just got to the point where Factor X got so strong that he had to actually act on it instead of just fantasizing about it.
But the only reason it got so strong was because of these moral limits he put on himself. These unachievable guidelines that he put for his life, or that maybe his parents instilled in him. I don't know.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And so like the only outlet was going to be 2 dead people.
Yeah.
He could only dead people could know the real Dennis Rader. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't able to talk to anybody because of the fear of being looked down upon. I don't know. It's instilled in a lot of really conservative families.
Yeah.
Like my family, my parents are like pretty conservative, but I grew up with friends that were like just so sheltered. And then as soon as they get out, it's like everything is just happy-go-lucky. It's almost like they don't even have any real conversations with their parents. You know what I mean? It's almost like they're just acquaintances. And everything is fine on the surface, happy-go-lucky. And then like these kids leave and they go nuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're just they become drug abusers.
You know, there's an episode of Black Mirror. Have you watched all of the latest season?
No, I have not. So don't ruin it for me.
Well,
I'm
there's
on season 3.
There's an episode with a girl that there's a new technology that's out. This mom has a daughter, and there's this technology that they put this little thing they install this little thing in your child's brain because she lost her daughter one day, and she ended up finding her like an hour later, but it freaked her out so bad that she thought she would try out this. She'd be a candidate for this new technology, which was like a tracking system for your child.
Right.
They install this little thing in the kid's brain, and then your mom could pull up this app on her iPhone, or I mean on her iPad. They give her like this tablet, and then she could literally see through a kid's eyes. And there was a GPS tracker on where the kid was, and it could also there was a feature on it that could filter the world around that child when it pertains to things that would spike the kid's heart rate, and when the adrenaline would go up, the iPad could sense this, or the sensor in the kid's head could sense that something was scaring the child, was being toxic to the kid's environment. So like this is what happened. So the kid would walk down the street, and if an aggressive dog was at a fence barking at the kid, it would filter this dog. It would make the dog a blur, and it would tone down the loudness of the bark. So she's walking by, and there's just this blur making a slight noise at her.
Oh my God!
And that's the world that this kid lived in into its teen years.
Oh my! That
and at a certain point,
metaphorically, that is exactly what a lot of these parents are doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the kid, the mom finally turned the filter off when she became an adult. And then the kid, in her teen years, and then the kid discovered pornography and all this stuff. And then she went down this dark path of like, she got this boyfriend, and the kid was a drug dealer, and she wanted to do his drugs because she just wanted to like try all this stuff that she'd never even known about.
Oh my God! And she was just like petting dogs.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God!
It was crazy.
What are these?
Shit got real crazy. Stuck her hand right in an aggressive dog's mouth.
Hey, Mom, puppy. What's that large squirrel running around our house? It's not, honey, that's the cat. That's she scratched you when you were 4.
Right. And then, of course, the mom had turned off the ability to see through the daughter's eyes at a certain point. She just felt bad. But then when the daughter started screwing up, she pulled out the iPad out of the attic, started looking through her child's eyes again, saw some shit she didn't want to see, and it all goes bad. But
man, I love that show.
But it kind of, I thought that kind of reference pertained to what we were just talking about.
Yeah, kind of. You probably just want to talk about Black
You're talking
Mirror.
about how kids that are so filtered.
No, you're right.
When they finally get set free.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think like there's a Black Mirror episode that could pretty much relate to any conversation.
Pretty much now.
That show's amazing. If you haven't watched Black Mirror, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing with your life?
Right. So this letter, with all of him connecting and taking responsibility for the Otero, the Shirley Vian, the Nancy Fox murders, plus the 7th victim that was later found out to be Kathy Bright, let it be loud and clear known to the police that they had a true ironclad evidence that they had a serial killer that was very violent and still on the loose. And and they were kind of like in denial about it, I think, for a while, and they weren't telling the media that there was this dangerous offender that was just a repeat offender who was out there just killing random people. And now they realized after this letter that they have to let the public know. Yeah. They have no other choice. And so the letter forced the Wichita Police Department to make a decision, and they decided that it would be publicly announced that Wichita had an unknown serial killer on the loose, and citizens were urged to be extra careful about locking doors and looking out for each other. Citizens would routinely check their phone lines and their phones when they came home. They would immediately run to the phone, check to make sure they had a dial tone, or they would walk around their house to make sure that there wasn't anything like window broken out.
I feel like I do that anytime the whole family is gone for any length of time at my house.
You think?
Yeah, I do that. Like for instance, if we go on a day trip or a weekend trip or whatever, when I come home, I always feel like I have to go in first and like look everywhere. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just do. I don't know if it's
that's smart. I mean,
I've always done it. Even before I started really digging into true crime. I always do that. I would just go and I'd look in all their closets.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
No doubt. When you come home from like a camping trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just feel like this place has been empty for days.
Yeah.
Who knows
let me look around, see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And like these people that like tag themselves when they're on a trip for a week and like say
exactly.
on a vacation. It's like, dude, just wait till you get back and before you start posting pictures of where you're at, you know,
right?
Or where you were.
I don't know if a lot of people know this, but a quick Google search of your name, people can find your address.
Oh yeah. So there's all this extra public pressure. Everyone's kind of on the lookout now for a serial killer, but he still nonetheless planned out his next hit, which was going to be in April of 1979. He broke into the home of 63-year-old Anna Williams. And that's another thing about him is like they weren't able to track it like an exact type of person. It's like his age was all over the place of his victims.
Oh, yeah. He was basically looking for vulnerability more so than age.
Vulnerability and just whatever fit his fantasy that week, I guess. Or if he saw the right person, he just wanted to see them tied up. That was all it took, really.
I don't think you really even care what they look like, to be honest.
Because he could always change the fantasy later. He could put whatever face on them later on. He would break into the home of Anna Williams, a 63-year-old widow who had recently lost her husband. He then sat in her home and waited for Anna to come home, except Anna didn't come home that night. That entire night, she did not come home. I believe she was out with friends and decided to stay at her sister's home or something like that. Or her daughter. I think she stayed with her daughter that night.
Yeah,
She'd
yeah.
gone out and like played bingo or something, and then she stayed with her daughter. And in the book, it described her coming home, putting her keys in the front door, and then changing her mind and saying, "You know what? I will go have some coffee with my daughter, or whatever."
Oh, really?
I
It
think
was
it
that close?
I think it was added for dramatic.
kinda dramatic,
effect.
yeah.
That's a movie scene.
Yeah, he's standing behind the door. Please.
But you know what? You guys can picture that to make it entertaining for yourselves. If
Yeah,
you'd like.
there you go.
But either way, he was obviously disappointed by that. He stole a few items, and you said he left a stick and a rope in her bedroom or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about this
She seemed to
obviously
know.
off air, but yeah.
She seemed to know that it was BTK that she had dodged. She was paranoid about it. She told her daughter that she knew it was him. However, they didn't attribute this break-in. This was just a break-in. The police responded to it. They didn't get out publicly that BTK tried to hit another victim. None of that got out. And then in June that year, just days before Rader's graduation ceremony for WSU, Anna received a package in the mail with a poem titled "Oh Anna, why didn't you appear?"
Yeah. And you guys can look these up and read them. They're horribly written, so
Yeah.
we're not gonna. We have a hard enough time reading well-typed things, so
Right.
Like,
And,
right.
yeah. And a drawing of what Rader had intended to do to her and a few other things had stolen were also in the package that he had sent. The next day, a similar package arrived at the studios of Cake TV in Wichita. Anna was terrified and quickly moved far away from Wichita once she knew that it was, in fact, BTK. That
I think she moved in with her daughter, actually.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And so now the public knew that that was his work, and he was still out there trying to kill. This took the media to a new frenzy, though, and it seems like after that he got so worried about being caught that he didn't play this cat and mouse game with the police anymore. He stopped sending letters. He stopped sending packages. They assumed that he was either dead or that he was done killing, or
Right.
he had moved away. Something had happened, and even though in July of 1984, Chief Richard Lemunion assigned Ken Landwehr to head a task force named the Ghostbusters and hired a computer consultant to work with them in an attempt to try and discover the identity of BTK. So they finally formed a task force, and they got some real effort, like set aside people's duties just to fucking focus on BTK.
Right.
They ended up doing some good work. They assembled a massive collection of DNA evidence 7 years after the last murder, and investigators finished entering all their data into an IBM computer, and a list of suspects began to spew out. The Ghostbusters Task Force discovered some of the most promising evidence during their investigation. One of the most startling clues was that all of the murders had occurred within a 3.5 mile radius of each other. This led the investigators to believe that BTK only felt comfortable killing in areas that were familiar to him, which was pretty true.
That is true.
But they
Well-
still didn't have like anybody to really point a finger at.
He was stalking in the areas he worked, so I mean that's where he was. So obviously that's where he's going to find his victims, in the areas where he was. Wasn't he a code inspector at this time? No.
Well, we'll get to it.
Okay.
By 1985, as far as anyone knew, it had been a number of years since his last kill. He was a busy family man, a person with no criminal record, someone apparently religious and helpful at church. He was now 40 years old. 40. He had a son of 9 years old, and his daughter was 6.
I think that had a lot to do with his little hiatus. I think it was because his kids were getting older. He's starting to relate to them as a father, and they kind of took. They took first priority in his life, and it kept him occupied. It kept him satisfied. He felt like he had a purpose. He was molding his children, you know what I mean? Probably being involved in their life. They're probably involved in extracurricular activities. Kept him busy. He didn't have time to creep and stuff, and he probably wanted to be at home. I mean, even as sick as he is, when you have a child, you have that connection. I mean, now, you have that connection where you want to be around them. You want to be involved in what they're doing, and maybe that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to appeal to his humanity because I don't want to accept that he's a complete animal, but I don't know.
Well, we know for sure what he was still doing was still tying himself up, taking pictures, doing all kinds of fantasy stuff on the side. They'd go on camping trips, and he'd be off for hours in the woods alone, tying himself up. And he's the scout leader during this time, and he's still enacting all these fantasies, and he's still got all these drawings. He's got so many drawings that he would later try to compile them and put them all into disc form, and it would take him a long time to do it because he just compiled all of these.
And he also has memories and pictures from crime scenes now that he can pull out.
Yes.
We talked about that before with serial killers. When they get little mementos, it kind of feeds that urge for a while.
Yeah.
And maybe he had quite a bit saved up here.
Now, as far as the public knew, they assumed by 2004, when he finally reemerges, which we'll get to, they didn't think he had killed since the end of 1977 with Nancy Fox.
Right.
But in reality, he'd still been killing. He took a big hiatus from 77. He tried to kill Anna, which we talked about when she didn't appear. But he was being much safer now. He was planning things out a lot more. And from 78, when when he was planning on killing Anna, he didn't actually kill again until the mid-'80s. He took several years off, but these ones weren't accredited to him because things had gone so quiet, and these last 2 kills that he does, they didn't fit his MO at all. He actually would go on to move the bodies, and like things were just different.
Oh yeah.
And they really didn't see the connections there between the BTK and these killings. These were older women too.
Yeah.
You know, well, I mean, we knew that he was trying to kill Anna, who was in her 60s.
She was in her 60s, right?
So it makes sense there. But so we talked about it by 1985. You know, it's been so long, and now he's 40. He's got these 2 kids. However, on his street, this kind of goes against what he stood for, in that, you know, don't shit where you eat mentality. Like he was killing within 3.5 miles of the bodies were all close together, but he wasn't killing right next to his home.
Right.
However, he just got so infatuated with a certain person that lived on his street, a woman, 53 years old, named Maureen Hedge. She lived just down the street, and during walks with Dennis's wife, Paula, he would sometimes wave to Maureen, who enjoyed gardening around the house, just as Dennis did. He was really into gardening during this time. There's pictures of him gardening with his wife, by the way. It was just so weird.
Oh, how sweet.
On April 27th, 1985, Rader was out camping with his Cub Scout. He was the obviously the leader of the Cub Scouts.
Obviously.
Dude, always look sideways at the leader of the Cub Scouts.
Nobody can teach knot tying better than Rader. Come on, man.
No, dude.
Champion knot tier.
You can definitely imagine him teaching knot tying to children. It's just real creepy.
Now just think for a minute, kids. If you had a woman and she
yeah. You want to try Papa Noose? This is the Papa Noose.
Could we just try it on sticks first?
So he planned this out so well, it almost blew my mind, and it's so creepy that he would do it this way. He leads the camping trip for the Cub Scouts. They're out in the woods. Mm-hmm. They're having a good time. He's showing them knots and all that. And then the campfire goes down.
Funny story, though, real quick. They were actually doing cross-dressing. Like, he was actually dressing up like a woman and, like...
Oh, yeah, on the side.
Doing, like, little plays and stuff.
On the side.
It was like a little joke. Yeah.
There was one time where he was tying himself up in the back of a pickup truck.
I mean, like, he was doing that for, like, the kids, for, like, entertainment, like, around the campfire. Yes. He would dress up like a woman, and, like, they would do, like, little plays, like, little skits and shit.
Now,
and they all thought it was just funny.
Now, if you're the parent of one of the kids and they tell you this is going down, it's done. It's over, right? No more am I sending my kid off to the woods to be led by a guy who's cross-dressing.
I don't give a fuck if you're about to be an Eagle Scout. You're out of there.
Right. I mean, nothing against that if that's your hobby, but I just don't really know if I want you doing that in the campsite around my kid.
No.
It just doesn't need to be going down. Right. You know? Do it on your own time. It doesn't need to be going down on the woods with my kid there.
Mr. Rader, why is there blood on your dress?
Right? It's a little strange. So he takes them out there. They're on this camping trip. They have the campfire going, and then it's time for everyone to go to bed. He says he has a headache. He goes back to his tent, waits for the kids to all go to sleep, and then he climbs out of the tent, drives to a local bowling alley where he has a beer, spills some of it on himself, tries to make it look like he's intoxicated, calls for a taxi, gets picked up by the taxi, has the taxi drive him to his neighborhood where he and also Maureen Hedge live.
Right.
And he pretends to be so intoxicated that he's going to go for, drop me off here. I'm going to go for a walk.
Right. Need to get some fresh air.
Which he then walks through a public park that backs up to Maureen Hedge's backyard.
Yeah.
Jumps the fence into her backyard. Now, he was hoping that she wasn't home. He was going to go in and wait for her like he had done in the past.
Right.
But he saw that her car was in the driveway. And so he was kind of disappointed, and he used a screwdriver to quietly enter in through the back window.
Right.
Or back
After
door.
he cut the phone line, of course.
After he cut the phone line, of course. He went inside and realized that she was not home, that she had been out with someone else. Mm-hmm. So he hid out in the house, I think in a bedroom closet.
Yeah.
And she comes in with a man that she had been out with.
Yep.
And the man shortly after leaves. They have some little, friendly talk, and then he leaves.
Right.
And he waits her out. She goes to bed, and he waits it out until he's sure she's asleep, where he then comes out of the closet and pounces on her in bed.
Just starts strangling her, bare hands.
Strangles her.
No belt, no stockings, no nothing this time.
Just she was only a 100-pound woman, so it didn't take long on this one. And he had a better idea of what it took to strangle a person now after doing it several times. Mm-hmm. So this one was over quick, but he wasn't done with the body. This time he was going to move the body from the location for the first time, which is part of why this didn't get attributed to him for like another 20 years, this murder. Partly because he didn't try to take credit publicly for it for a while. He was in the dark publicly now. And so he takes her body, wraps it up, and puts it in his car and takes it where would he take it? His church.
To the church. Why not?
To the church where he's high up. He's got keys. Takes her body down to the basement, puts some black paper up in the windows to make sure no one could see in what he's going to do,
course.
because he's going to lay down plastic and he's going to pose the body in all different ways and take photographs in various poses.
This was his other murder that went perfect.
Yeah.
In his opinion.
Yeah.
This was the second one. Only 2 out of the 10 really seemed like he actually got what he went in there for.
I mean, keep in mind at this point, he's in the basement of his church with a body of a woman. And he's supposed to be in camp because he's the leader of the Cub Scout troop that's in their tent sleeping right now.
Well, when you put it that way, it just sounds crazy, Lauren. It sounds awful. God, I mean, you switch words around, anything sounds bad. You know what
right?
I mean?
So he then takes the body from the church after he feels satisfied. He realizes it's getting so late that it's going to be getting light out soon. And so he takes the body and he dumps it in a ditch several miles outside of Park City in a semi-concealed area. He put some trimmings over the body, and he left the knotted pantyhose that he had used during the murder near the body.
Right. Which was a mistake. He did not mean to do that.
Right.
He didn't do that shit on purpose.
Well, I mean, why would you? There's nothing to gain from it.
Right.
He wasn't like, if he wanted people to know that he did it, he could just put out another letter.
Right.
So yeah, by then it was getting light out, and he hurried back to camp and cooked breakfast for the kids, woke them up, and all was good.
Well, there you go. Multitasking at its finest.
Yeah. That's after he had parked Marine's car, who he'd used to deliver the body around, and wiped it down from fingerprints.
Right.
This takes us to his next murder that no one knew about for a long time. A little over a year later, September 1986, Rader had his eye on Vicki Wegerly, a 28-year-old mother of 2. He would walk by her house hearing different.
Oh yeah, he loved the way she played piano. Like he was just obsessed with.
She was a piano tutor, right? I think she
a
did
teacher,
lessons.
yeah.
She advertised for lessons on like on her porch. She had like a sign that advertising lessons.
Yeah.
So he had her eye on her, and on September 16th, he took some time out for a project, is what he liked to call. And sometime after 10 a.m., he showed up at Vicky's door, dressed up like a telephone repairman. Now, this is after he had gone to her neighbor's house and pretended to be a TV repairman, gone in, messed with their telephone jack for a few minutes.
Right.
And he wanted Vicky to see him at the neighbor's house so that she would feel more comfortable letting him in, which
crazy,
actually kind of worked.
It's crazy the extents he went to seem non-threatening.
He would leave witnesses like that, you know, like he went to the neighbor's house and went in their house, talked to them, and then he killed their neighbor. Like they must have talked to the police and given a pretty good description, you would think.
I don't know. Did those people know that he went to the
I mean, they found out their neighbor was murdered that like moments later or whatever.
That does seem strange. But how do you describe him? I mean, like we said before, he looks just like everybody. He looks just like a normal man. There's nothing that really sticks out about him.
Yeah. So he went to her house, told her that he was a telephone repairman. He even had a hard hat with like a logo that he had fashioned on there that looked like the telephone company, and like a logo on his shirt. He somehow managed to let Vicky get him inside because he'd gone to the neighbor's house and looked legit as a phone operator. He fiddled with her phone jack for a few minutes, improvised. He had made some like testing gadget that was probably just like batteries with a wire sticking out or something.
Right. Little potato clock.
He then, right. He then presented a gun and told her his normal spiel that he had a sexual problem.
I wonder what made him change to just being honest. Like, what made him drop the whole criminal on the run thing? At what point was he just like, you know what, fuck it, listen, I got this issue. This is going to go down like this.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess at that point you knew, at least to me, I knew that he had every intention of killing everyone that he encountered at that point. Because if you're going to just come up straight up with that and not even lie about it, if you do not care what that person knows, then obviously there's no getting out of it at all. You know what I mean? He's already committed. It's like, this person's going to die tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. With the Oteros, I'm not so sure. I think maybe he thought if this woman cooperated, you know, maybe if I tied her up, maybe choke her unconscious or something, but maybe I can let her live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then be out of town. But or at least she thinks I'm out of town. I don't know, because he never wore a mask either. So that goes to say
he wore a mask, but only when he was tying himself up and putting himself in graves and like hanging himself from trees in the woods.
Yeah.
He had a creepy like white female-looking mask that he would put on, and he would take those photos with the camera that you said that it had a little timer on it.
But he didn't wear pants. It was really weird.
God, they're just so gross.
So fucking gross.
So gross if you look them up. Man, they're dark. Because it's like old,
from
grainy 70s photographs.
It's like from the waist to like the top of his knees are the only thing exposed. It's so fucking creepy.
His big pasty legs. Oh, did we talk about the camping trip he went on with his family where he went off in the woods to choke himself out for a few hours and he forgot to put sunscreen on and he came back into camp with his family and he's got like a white neck and then his face is red? Little awkward conversation.
How do you explain that shit?
I don't know. I just don't know.
You can't explain that. How do you?
His wife must have just looked the other way at times.
She had to.
I just.
Well, like I said earlier, it's you want to see the best in people. I think naturally, especially people that are close to you.
We're coming up to a point where I might as well just say it now. The book at a certain point says that John Douglas, after going to interview Dennis Rader in prison after being convicted of all 10 murders,
right?
He goes to interview him, and then while he's still in town, this is a small town in Wichita.
Yeah.
He goes back to his hotel room, and there's a letter underneath that had been slipped underneath the door. It was an anonymous letter from someone that was close to Rader's family, and they claimed that Rader went on this long hiatus that we're about to get to, from the 80s all the way up to 2004, in large part to the fact that his wife had caught him a couple times at the house with a noose around his neck that had been tied to like the doorknob or whatever in the bedroom. She'd walked in on him, cross-dressed with a noose around his neck and lost her shit on him. But one of the reasons that he had chose her for a wife is that he knew she wouldn't go public with it. Whoa. She searched...
Out of embarrassment, right?
Out of embarrassment for herself.
Because she was raised even more strict than him.
Very religious.
Yeah.
And so she reached out anonymously to like help groups.
Oh my God.
She reached out to like a church and said a friend of hers had a husband that was doing this. And is there anything that she
had a friend of mine.
Long story short, she ended up getting him self-help books and said, you better read these and I better not catch you doing this again. She'd caught him twice. The second time she said, ever again, and I'm done. And so that partially the embarrassment from his wife catching him in the act and wanting to obey her wishes may have partially caused this big hiatus. He might have like really caused him to look himself in the mirror a little bit.
Wow. Yeah.
Or, I mean, maybe he just got so worried about getting caught. I don't know. Because, I mean, a lot of stuff he was doing outside of the house anyway. He probably still would go to an abandoned barn or whatever and do this stuff or go out in the woods and do it. But
it could have been a combination of those things. Man, I did not hear that.
Yeah, the book talked about it. Yeah, John Douglas got a letter from someone close to this situation.
So he thinks that it was from...
He alluded to that.
Is there any photos of that letter? Did he say,
no.
Maybe look like a woman's handwriting, anything like that?
No.
That's odd.
I don't think he wanted to incriminate whoever it was. It almost sounded as though it could have been... it could have been put up too, because in the interview with Dennis Rader, he asked if Dennis's wife had ever known, and Dennis was so defensive about that. She never knew. He defended his wife and said she never knew what I was up to. Don't try and bring her into this and yada, yada. And it might have freaked Dennis out to the point where he put someone else to writing that letter, to kind of like help clear his wife's name in a sense, make her look good.
Right.
And so who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, that's strange because, she was putting pieces together. And then you got to imagine they were having conversations at night, watching the news and going, maybe and she's going probably like, oh, maybe we should, make sure everything's locked and maybe think about, getting a security system or I'm sure they had one. He worked for ADT or maybe we should think about getting cameras or something, And he's like,
babe, when you're the boogeyman, you don't got to worry about the boogeyman. That's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. I'll go make me a sandwich.
So did we really just like go on a sidetrack in the middle of a murder right now?
Yeah, we did. That sounds like us.
God, we're terrible. So he had pulled the gun on her and he told her he had a problem and he led her to the bedroom. She actually, this is terrible. She had a 2-year-old son who was in the house playing in another room while he committed this murder, and her husband was at work and he was returning shortly. He then attempted to tie her up. She broke loose and fought with him. He ended up tying a pair of nylon hose around her neck and strangled her, but she was not dead. He then took photos of her naked, took items from her purse, and left in her car. It ended up that Vicky did not die until later that day at the hospital. Her husband came home and found her still conscious and really just like not in a good way.
And this is the husband that took a lot of the heat for her death.
Bill Wegerle, this poor guy, for the next 18 years, people looked at him sideways. He was a main suspect. Obviously, they didn't connect this to B.T.K. at all.
Right.
And they didn't for the next 18 years. Bill Wegerle was the main suspect, but they didn't have enough to convict him for it, obviously, because he didn't fucking do it.
And that shows you how bad of condition that she was in, that Vicky was in, because she couldn't even state that it wasn't her husband or was.
They actually asked the 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old, they said, did daddy hurt mommy? And the 2-year-old said no. And I mean, the kid must have known, like, saw this guy come in, take the mommy to the bedroom, and then mommy didn't come out,
Imagine if that kid would have said yes, just on a whim.
Right.
Like, he's 2 years old, like...
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So this is crazy. So in 1988, Rader succeeded in getting himself fired from ADT Security finally after a long run with them. The official reason stated by the company was that he was not getting his work quota done because he's too busy stalking people.
Of course.
And then the varying reports from coworkers describe a man who could be difficult to work with, but was customer oriented. So like to impress the new people, but not so much
like
the
we
people
said
he worked
earlier,
with.
he's very OCD. I'm sure he was difficult in the workplace.
Oh, dude, he thought he was better than everybody
Yeah.
for sure. He was that guy.
He thought like his way, it's his way or the highway. You know what I mean? It's like he knows the right way to do everything.
Yep. He then worked for the U.S. Census Bureau for several months in 1989 as a field operations supervisor, telling people what to do. I'm sure
You
he
get
loved
these
that.
fucking field jobs, man. Get this guy out of the field, okay? Get this guy out.
Put him
of
in
the
a fucking cubicle,
field.
please. Save lives.
Seriously, make him a fucking telemarketer or
You
some
think
shit.
he needs an hourly wage while he's able to stalk people? This is great.
He's getting paid to stalk people.
He was then promoted to a state supervisory position after a connection in 1990 with the census. It afforded him more ample time in the community to travel around in vehicles, stalking people.
Of course.
Adding more potential projects in various locations around the state. He then focused his attention on his final victim, which would turn out to be his final victim, which was 62-year-old Dolores Davis. She only lived about a mile and a half from where he did. She lived alone. And using the pretext of being away for the weekend on a scouting camping trip in Harvey County, he again invented an excuse to slip away from camp in the evening. This was January 19th, 1991. He drove back to his parents' house, who were out of town. He changed out of his scout uniform and into his hit clothes, grabbed his hit bag.
His hit clothes.
He then drove to the Baptist church in Park City and parked his car. He loved to use his church as like a headquarters.
Yeah, why not, right?
He then set out on foot for the Davis residence. When he got there, Dolores was still awake and reading in bed. This was late at night. He waited out in the cold for her to turn her light off and go to sleep. He then threw a concrete block through her patio door. He had found the block in the backyard and just used it.
Yeah.
And then
He was like, fuck it. She lives alone. Like,
he'd obviously cut the phone line already as well.
yeah.
She came running out of the bedroom and confronted him. He saw her. He told her that he wanted to. He was a wanted fugitive and that he just wanted food.
Yeah.
He then handcuffed her and went around the house pretending to look for food and other items that he needed. He made sure that the car was ready to go, removed the handcuffs, and tied her up with rope. He then strangled her to death with pantyhose, placed her on a blanket, and put her body in the trunk. See, it's like more changing of his MO.
Fast forwarding this shit.
Moving the body.
Hold on, real quick. Like in my book, it said that when he had threw the block through the window and she came out, thought a car hit it. He actually went with that story. She was like, "Did you hit my house?" And he actually went along with it, according to him.
Wow.
He was like, "Yeah, and I need help, and blah blah blah." And he gained her trust that way. He was like, "Oh wow, you've already made an alibi for me, so yeah, I'll take that one."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after strangling her to death with a pantyhose, he then put her body on a blanket and drove away in her car. He placed her body out in the woods in a secluded location. I heard that he had dug a grave for her before he even went.
I think a very shallow one. I think it was more of just digging out a ditch, more so, just like he did with the previous body.
Right.
But he was wanting to come back to her.
Yeah, which he did.
Yeah.
He took her car back to her house and found a gun that he had dropped. So this is twice now that he goes back to the crime scene to gather something that he had left there, which is smart in a way, but really dumb in a way.
Yeah.
You don't want to leave the evidence, but also like going back is a huge risk.
Right.
He then returned to the site where he had dumped the body. It's where he could have his fun. He'd found that the body had already been mutilated by some kind of animal. He placed a homemade mask on her and continued to take pictures of her naked body. I believe he took the mask and put it on himself and took more pictures of himself tied up and just like, I think he took pictures of him in her grave and just all kinds of creepy shit. He then,
you think so? You think he took pictures of
I've
himself?
seen pictures of him in a grave that he
yeah?
had dug. I don't know if it was Dolores' grave or just a grave that he dug for himself, but just.
I know he would like fake his own suicide even from like a young age. He was doing that shit.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
But he would always tie himself up, like he would hang himself, but his feet would be on the ground. So he could lean into the rope and it wouldn't be dangerous. He then took her body and dropped it underneath a bridge. She was found 13 days later on February 1st, 1991. Only 4 months after this, Rader was hired by Park City as a compliance and animal control officer. This is like his most well-known job because it's such a perfect job. Such a perfect job for this guy.
Yeah.
Because he always wanted authority. It gave him the opportunity to look just like a cop.
Oh my God.
He almost looked indistinguishable from a cop, from what the police officers in Wichita would wear at this time.
Right.
And the office that he reported to was right next to the police station, so he kind of like had to make a left and then the police officer would make a right.
Oh my God.
You know, you imagine him like making a right and then like doing a U-turn at the door. Like, someday.
He's got his little fake badge. He just breathes on it.
Yeah. So
Polishes it.
this is the nightmare guy that lives in your small town that just gives everyone hell. Like, he's literally would measure people's grass. Like, he was a combination of a dog catcher and a local code enforcer, but he liked the local code enforcer a lot more.
Well, let's get it straight, though. He wasn't just harassing anybody. He was harassing women.
Oh, yeah.
He was harassing women.
A good-looking
mostly.
woman would move into town, and there was one story of Kimmy Comer was her name. She had just moved in, and literally like an hour and a half after she like pulled up in the U-Haul truck and was like unloading her stuff, this guy appears at her freaking driveway, and he's giving her shit about her washer sitting on the driveway. Like, how long is that going to be there? I'm going to write you a ticket. And she's like, I'm literally moving in right now.
literally moving in, motherfucker.
Like,
There's a U-Haul right there.
Right. And he would constantly harass this woman. There was some code that said that if you had you couldn't park 2 vehicles in your driveway if one of them was inoperable.
Right.
Both of her cars were operable. He would come by and harass her on a daily basis, saying you can't have those 2 cars there. And she would go out there and start both of them and say, look, they're both running vehicles. What do you stop harassing me?
Yeah. My car just looks shitty. Give me a break.
Right. And
I don't know.
she said that it literally came to the point where like one day she was in her kitchen and like she came out in the living room and he was standing in her house. He walked in through the front door and was standing in there and trying to give her shit about some code or whatever.
He was thinking about it, dude. He was thinking
And
about
she
it.
said she went crazy on him and told him, get the hell out of my house or I'm going to call the cops. And that like freaked out on him. And he just like turned out and left with his shoulders slumped.
Dude,
like
he
like
was
a little
thinking
bitch.
about it, right?
Yeah, no, he wanted to, but he's like, can I really do this in my work uniform?
In my work uniform right now? He wanted to kill her bad.
Yeah, so she felt as though she got lucky that he never
she
killed
did.
her.
She got super lucky.
I mean, all of her neighbors and everything knew that he was obsessed with her. He would be like, she would be gone at work, and he would just be sitting in front of her house for hours in his work truck.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow, she got lucky.
Yeah.
I wonder what discouraged him, honestly.
Yeah.
It was just all the eyes on him. It's just too close to home, and too many people had seen, like you said, people noticed it. People noticed it.
It would have been way too obvious.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just crazy that he was so blatantly like harassing women like this. Like you would think when the police are still kind of like, obviously it's not at the forefront anymore, searching for the BTK because it's been so long at this point. But still, like this guy is just like making himself a fucking. He's making himself a prime suspect as a creep in the community, just following people around. You know.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of those neighbors, or if this woman had heard of the BTK killer, even though she just moved into town, like, and thought like, God, this guy's awful creepy. I wonder if this is the guy. You know?
Yeah. Right. No, they didn't.
Yeah. So this is the long period, the long drought where he's just gone about his business. He's working as a code enforcer. He's got part of probably why he didn't kill for so long is he got the perfect job where he got to like live out his fantasies on a daily basis of just harassing people. And he's still driving around with his paper slaves, and he's still full creep mode like on the side. Like his private life, he's still doing all kinds of hanging himself, and he's got like
he's still hanging himself on the daily for sure.
Right.
No, but he actually was covering big areas of town here because there's only 2 code inspectors in the whole town.
Yeah.
And the other one was a woman. Mm-hmm. But so he
still
had
found plenty of time
area.
to harass a single person every day.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
They said that he would chase dogs around with tranquilizer guns. Like he really got off on the whole taking out animals.
I heard a particular story where he let a dog out. Like he was getting onto this woman about her dog getting out.
I heard he got one of them put down.
Yes. I heard he put it down. But
yeah.
Maybe he did just get it put down. It was weird, like in his confession where he talked about people like that. He's like, well, I had to put her down. Like,
yeah, we'll talk about his confession shortly. His matter-of-fact way of just talking about these heinous acts that he did. And it's just like he's describing one of our days just going to work.
Gary Ridgway-esque.
Yeah.
The way he talked.
Yeah. So by 2004, the BTK killer case had gone cold. The task force had been disbanded many years back, and it's basically like there is a lost cause. They don't know whether this guy's alive anymore. We're talking 25 to 30 years since the last known murder that he had committed, like BTK killer had committed. Obviously, he killed in 91. He killed in the late 80s as well, but they didn't connect those to him.
Right.
So as far as they knew, he hadn't killed since 77, the BTK killer, and it's now 2004. They had given up hope.
They think maybe he was terminally ill, maybe he's dead, maybe he's gone. Who knows?
Yeah. He'd gathered up his luck and just ran out of town, knowing that he was never going to be caught. They probably assumed. But during this time, it was like the 30-year anniversary of the Otero family murders, and people were starting to get to the point where they wanted to write books about the BTK killer case because, like, it's an unsolved serial killer that wreaked havoc on this town, and it's been 30 years since the start of this serial killer with the Otero family, and people want to write books and stuff, and he's seeing like these specials pop up on TV about him, and it re-sparks this love that he had for the media talking about him.
Well, also these specials were kind of taking liberties that he
felt were his.
Yeah, they felt were his. Like they were kind of painting this picture of him, and that kind of pissed him off because there were certain things he didn't like. They're like, "Oh, who?
That's not even true,
yeah.
bro. Yeah. I was there. I know."
Exactly. So he felt like he needed to speak up. He was worried about this legacy that no one even tied to him.
Right.
You know, it's just his ego brought him down, just like a lot of killers, I think.
Yeah. And so on March 17th, 2004, he mails an envelope to the Wichita Eagle from a Bill Thomas Killman. I'm sure you can figure
initials.
out the Met there, B.T.K. It contained 3 photocopied pictures of his own photos of a dying Vicky Wegerly taken in 1986. So this is now, they're like, holy shit, he did that murder.
Right.
As well as a photocopy of her missing driver's license, which all but gave them complete proof that he had done it. He signed it with his B.T.K. symbol, which looks like a pair of boobs. And
the B does, kind of. That's what's on the cover
like
of the book
stick
that
figure.
I read. Yeah, it's like the T is sideways.
Yeah. It's real clever.
I guess so, if you're into that kind of thing.
The letter was forwarded to the FBI, who confirmed its authenticity as a BTK letter. An old cold case was solved, being Vicky Wegerly.
But there was a bigger problem now.
Right.
BTK
is back. Obviously, the fucking community is in complete shock that he reemerges after 25 years. As soon as the story hit the media, BTK was suddenly back in the spotlight like never before. This time was added with a new dimension of the internet.
Ooh.
Times have changed.
That's
it's
right.
the future now.
Welcome to the future.
The future's
BTK.
going to catch this guy. And it did. Discussion boards, chat rooms, websites sprouted up dedication to the unsolved mystery of the BT case. It consumed the media in Wichita and beyond. So it was kind of going nationwide, which is what he always wanted.
Yep.
And
That's right.
He didn't realize that. Like, look, he may not have been able to get nationwide notoriety in the 70s, but in the 2000s with the internets, anything's possible.
With the internets.
The dust hadn't begun to settle when Rader sent a second letter, this time to Cake TV, the local Wichita ABC affiliate, on May 5th, 2004. This was a lengthy word puzzle consisting of columns and letters and a few numbers mixed in. Really shitty puzzle. It was not Zodiac quality. The FBI verified that this also came from the BTK, as he characteristically used his unique signature, but also couldn't make any particular sense out of the puzzle.
Right.
It just had stupid like keywords in it, but it really didn't trace to anything. He's like, kill.
Man, he's reaching, man.
Cereal.
Torture?
On June 9th, 2004, Rader left a package taped to a stop sign at the corner of First and Kansas in the middle of the city. This contained a disturbing collection of documents, including a letter detailing the grisly murders of the Otero family and a sketch of a nude-bound female hanging from a rope. 11-year-old Josephine Otero had been hanged by a rope in the basement. We know that. So he contained a photo of Josephine.
Right.
And there was a sketch that labeled "The Sexual Thrill is My Bill." Also enclosed was a chapter list entitled "The BTK Story." So he basically this was the first chapter to this book that he was going to write, because this local lawyer, how dare he write a book about me?
Yeah. What does he know?
Right.
Bastard.
Chapter 1 of this book was "A Serial Killer is Born."
Ooh. The BTK Productions presents
Right.
A Serial Killer is Born.
And then on July 17th, he's just loving this, man. He's back in the limelight after all these dull years of living a normal life with a family and everything. On July 17th, 2004, a package marked BTK was found in a book return at the Wichita Public Library downtown. It contained a worrisome message. "I have spotted a female that I think lives alone and or is a spotted latchkey kid. Just got to go to work out the details. I'm much older now and have conditioned myself terribly." It's hard to read his writings because he's so bad at writing. And I'm not the best reader anyway. Also, my thinking process is not sharp as it uses to be. I think fall or winter would be just about right for the hit, all in caps. Got to do it this year or next. Time is running out for me. The same package contained an intriguing claim that BTK, had engineered the death of a 19-year-old man from Argonia. Yeah, this was bullshit. So this kid, Jake Allen, a 19-year-old scholar, student, and athlete, had committed suicide by laying on railroad tracks 12 days earlier to when he wrote this letter, and he tried to take credit for it by saying that he had lured the young man to death via his series of computer chats, Which I don't even know if he can
First
figure out
off,
how to chat on
the
a
dude
computer.
can barely use a computer. That's exactly what I was about to say. If you know how this guy got caught, there's no way.
But what's beautiful about it though, like he was actually really smart. The lead investigator later said that this put them on such a wild goose chase. Because it had to do with like eyeglasses, because they knew that they'd figured out the BTK wore glasses. They had made some connections between letters he had written about his victims and like them being optometrists, and like this kid was going to school to become an optometrist, and he had gotten caught with some friends with some beer, and like that's why he committed suicide. Like he thought that had ruined his chances to become an optometrist, and so that connection between knowing BTK wore glasses and this kid being in optometry school or wanted to become an optometrist, they thought that there was something there.
What a
and
fucking
they,
stretch!
They went on this wild goose chase to try and figure out, try and find a connection and see who sent this kid to death, and like it was all a waste of time. The claim was later disproven as a hoax, as there was no evidence that Allen had ever had any such interaction on the internet with anyone, and his death is still seen as a suicide.
Doesn't he know that everything on the internet is still on the internet? Like,
Right. Yeah.
So much he doesn't know.
Yeah. So despite huge pressure from the public, the police refused to release many details of the packages from June. It was feared basically that these things could provoke BTK in a killing frenzy.
Right.
The fifth drop occurs on October 22nd, 2004, when a UPS worker found a strange envelope while picking up the contents of a UPS box. This consisted of very disturbing assortment of cards and images posted to them. He liked to use postcards a lot.
Yeah.
There was also a collage of pictures of children and bindings drawn across their bodies and faces. This envelope also contained what BTK claimed to be his autobiography, listing a number of details about his life, such as being born in 1939, his father dying in the war, mother dated a railroad detective, and so on. And so it was sprinkled with truth, but he was just basically trying to completely derail them. It almost seemed like he was like panicking about being caught. Maybe he thought this lawyer was going to put all this information out there and someone was going to figure out who he was because of this lawyer's book. I'm starting to think maybe that's what this information is about. Because all of these letters he's sending now are not mainly to get attention. It seems like he's just trying to throw the investigators off the course of finding him.
Yeah, possibly.
He's just throwing a bunch of misinformation in.
Because of all this railroad shit, they arrested the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Not too long after this.
Right. It's just, it almost seems like all those letters now are just, there's a different motive to them. They're not for his pleasure. They're just to try and help him not get caught.
Right.
Now, it's around this time, the Wichita Police Department, they decide, with the help of my guy at the FBI, they decide that they need to create a super cop. And they need to create a guy that can speak one-on-one through the media to this killer and try to create a connection to get him to trust the cop. And they choose Ken Landwehr, who is the lead detective and lieutenant.
Right.
And so they start having Ken like speak to the media and speak almost directly to the killer, and like, you know how he always wanted to be a cop.
Yep.
And this is what ends up bringing this bastard down.
He had a weird respect for Landwehr.
Yeah, that's what they hoped.
This
would
absolutely
happen.
worked in their favor. It was genius.
Yeah, so they started to develop a relationship, and he would start actually writing to Ken in a sense when he would write these letters.
Yeah.
So Rader's sixth drop would be found on December 14th, 2004, when a man walking through Murdoch Park noticed a package wrapped in white plastic leaning against a tree. Out of curiosity, he took it home with him and opened it. It contained a project doll. The doll's head had a plastic bag tied over it. Its hands were tied behind its back, and its feet were bound together. You can see pictures of it. It's very creepy.
Something interesting about this drop, he contacted the police or the news and told them to look at this intersection. And supposedly, they sent out like a freaking search party and looked all over this. There was like a college campus there, like a hospital or something near the area. Searched all these campuses and could not find this fucking thing. And this guy, just taking a stroll in the park, he's like, oh, there it is. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, my God.
What's going on, cops?
Yeah.
Like,
it's right here.
It's right over here. What are you guys doing over there?
And so, like, just to make it clear, he's still up to his normal stuff in life. On January 1st, 2005, he officially became the new president of the church council at the Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita.
Oh, good for him.
So he's still moving on up in the church, where he keeps bodies in the basement and takes pictures.
That's right.
Oh, boy.
And he's not done making drops either.
Right. So 2005 continues the frenzy with the media and the serial killer who just taunting the police. 8 days into the new year, Rader left a Special K cereal box marked BTK and bomb in the bed of a pickup truck parked at the Home Depot.
Yeah, but the only problem was the guy that owned the pickup truck
didn't see the shit.
Didn't give a shit. He was like, let me throw this shit. Because if anybody's ever had a pickup truck, that's one of the worst things about having a pickup is people will throw trash in the back.
100%.
All the time. It's like, what the hell? I don't even drink this drink or whatever this is. It's
Right.
like there'll just be shit in your truck,
Yeah.
like all the time. So he's probably used to it by now, and just he threw it out at home though, didn't he? He took that.
He
box
threw it
home.
in his home trash, and then the next letter the next message that BTK would send would allude to a previous package, and he said there was stuff in that they were like, we didn't get a package that talked about that.
Yeah.
And so and he mentioned Home Depot, the Home Depot package. So they went to Home Depot, the one in Wichita. I'm sure there was only one.
Right.
They went to the Home Depot. They looked at the security cameras, and they were able to find actually the first images of BTK. This phantom that they'd been looking for 30 years.
The
First
blurry
ever
outline.
grainy, shitty images but they were able to, through measurements and whatnot, they were able to determine that it was a black Jeep Cherokee is what they thought, based off the wheelbase measurements and everything they could do from the camera.
Right.
And they saw just a grainy man throwing something in the bed of a pickup truck.
Yeah.
And the man that they threw whose pickup truck it was, luckily he hadn't taken his trash out, so they were able to retrieve the package.
Mm-hmm. Which he wrote on it. He wrote bomb. And then I think it was said he used this cereal box because he thought that was creative because he's a serial killer.
Yeah,
Oh,
so stupid.
good one, bruh.
Right.
Yeah, but he wrote bomb BTK pre on it is what it looks like. BTK pre. There's actually a picture of it. You guys want to check it out. It says bomb above the special K, and then to the right of the box it says
PRE
BTK
dash.
PRE dash. Yeah.
Yeah.
BTK pre. I don't know.
Right. So the box itself contained information about some of his projects and intended victims that he had watched or stalked. It also contained more misleading information on how he lived in a 3-story home in Wichita with an elevator and had a bomb in the basement rigged to explode if the house were invaded. This is for the first time he asks the police a question, and that's when this super cop, this whole concept of a super cop started to sound like it was paying off for the police.
Right.
He's now talking to Ken Landwehr.
Mm-hmm.
He says, if he put his writings on a computer disk, would it be traceable? And he requested a response to be posted in the Wichita Eagle classified ads in the miscellaneous category using his codename Rex. And so he wanted the police to answer whether if he put stuff, if he put a bunch of stuff for you on a floppy disk.
Right.
Yeah.
And he
kind
also
of like if you go up to a police officer and you ask, "Are you a police officer?" They have to say yes. That's all bullshit too,
Right. And he put in there, be honest. So, I mean, they had to be honest, right? They are cops. If you ask a cop if he's a cop, he has to tell you he's a cop.
I'm being honest. How about how I live in a 3-story building with an elevator?
Yeah.
It's
now
just
be
so funny how offended he
honest with
was.
me.
It's so funny how offended he was in the end when he's like, "You lied to me.
You lied to me, you bastard. How is a serial killer
dare you."
supposed to make a living out here if I can't trust the cops?"
Right. So they would respond to him and say, "No, that it's not traceable." Of course not. Go ahead.
Oh,
and send it on over,
sure,
bud.
man. Send it over.
So the
Don't worry
8th
about it.
drop was another cereal box from the serial killer. This one in a Post Toadies.
Post?
The Toadies. It's a good band.
Oh, okay.
It was discovered January 25th, 2005. It was a postcard sent to Cake TV with a return address of S. Killett. I'll just leave that out there.
Okay.
Plus the address of the Otero house. Dropped number 9, stated the location of the Post Toasties box and mentioned at the drop of Home Depot back in January 8th. That's how they found out about the previous one.
Right.
The Toasties box was found leaning against a road sign on a desolate, unpaved section of North Seneca. Cake videotaped the box without touching it and notified the police. It had a brick on top of it and appeared weathered. It was later revealed to have another doll in it, this one tied with a rope around its neck and tied to a plumbing fixture, which you can kind of picture. He's basically trying to show that this is Josie, right? Josephine?
Yeah, Josephine.
Josephine Otero, because she was tied to the water pipe, so he did like his own little...
Yeah, it's like a little U-trap that's underneath your drain. I can just imagine Paula coming out. Dennis, the bathroom's leaking again. Woman, get off my case, god damn it! I'm trying to send a message here.
Oh my God, he's taking his own plumbing from under the sink. Wow. So he had reenacted the Josephine Otero murder, which is not a funny thing at all, but he had used a little P-trap from a plumbing kit and tied it to a Barbie doll or Barbie's friend because it's got dark hair.
Right.
The 10th drop was another postcard that arrived on February 3rd, again sent to Cake. Return address was Hap Cakeman, a 1950s character from Cake's past. The Rader wrote, "Thank you for your quick response on 7 and 8. He's just loving this.
Yeah, he is.
Thank to the news team for their efforts. Sorry about Susan's and Jeff's colds. What a fucking... God, I hate this guy.
What a cunt.
Oh my God. I don't even want to read his shit anymore. It annoys me so much.
You read it, Lauren. You're doing a great job.
And he basically put at the end, test run soon. So he was alluding to the disc that he was going to send. He now believed, because they had responded in the classified ads like he had said, and they said, Rex, it will be okay, is what their response was.
Of course.
So now he's basically telling them, I'm going to be sending a disc soon, and it'll be a test run, basically. Yeah. And so Drop 11 arrived at the studios of KSAS TV on February 16th, the Fox affiliate in Wichita. It contained a letter, a piece of jewelry, and a purple diskette referred to as test floppy or for WPD review. And detectives wasted little time analyzing the disc and found software on it from Christ Lutheran Church. So they're all huddled around the IT guy in the police department, and he's like hacking into this disc right away. He finds that there's a name attached, which is Dennis
Rader.
And then there's a location attached, which is Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita, which had its own website.
Of course.
And showed that someone very high up at the church was a man named Dennis Rader. Mm-hmm. So the group of detectives quickly drove to Rader's house in Park City, noted a black Jeep in the parking in the driveway.
Right. Which was his son's Jeep, by the way, which is kind of twisted that he would use his car for all these activities.
Yeah, it is. Dennis was then placed under surveillance, and right away, when they really looked into this guy's history, they loved what they saw as far as like a potential killer. I mean, they see that he wears glasses. He looks like a serial killer. First of all,
he looks like a
freak.
Let's be honest.
At this age, we talked about, he transformed into an evil-looking man
his
as he got
job
older.
Gives him access to people's homes.
Yep.
He's all over the city. Yeah.
Yeah.
He lives within 3 miles of most of the murders.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he was placed under surveillance while a subpoena was being secretly obtained for the DNA sample. And they were trying to figure out how they're going to get DNA. And they came up with a brilliant idea.
He was pissed about this.
Someone had mentioned, I don't give a fuck.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Someone had made the point that his daughter was going to a local college, and they had a clinic there. Mm-hmm. And that most of the students that went to the school would frequently use the clinic, and that if they obtained a subpoena for her medical records from this college, they could obtain DNA from her, and they could link the DNA to her paternal father and see if there's a link between the crime scene freaking semen that was left there and her DNA. And so they go to the clinic, they show them the subpoena that they have, they obtain some DNA. It's matched to several crime scenes, including the Otero family murder.
That's right.
And they know they got their guy. And the day that they get him is a beautiful thing, because he had this. He's a very structured guy, as we've talked about, very routine. Yeah. Every day, while working for the county, he would go on his lunch break, and within like 2 minutes of his lunch break starting, he would pull out of work and he would be at his house, and his wife would already have made him lunch. And so it's just another day for him. Pulls out of his work parking lot, immediately followed by a white unmarked car, and from there on, helicopters, police cars everywhere. He's just stunned. But they also noted how like calm he was. Like, didn't seem like anything ever got him worked up. Like
said, he's been getting away with it for so long, dude.
Yeah,
it just became a normal thing. I mean, you hear these serial killers that don't get any heat for a couple months, and they're starting to feel like superheroes. Imagine 30 years,
right?
And you're not getting caught still. It's like, oh shit, maybe I am untouchable.
Yeah. And so they loaded him into the back of a van. This was on February 25th, 2005, that they finally captured the guy that they've been looking for 30 years. And in the back of the van was Lieutenant Landwehr, the super cop that had gotten him caught.
His buddy.
When he entered the van, he said, "Hello, Mr. Landwehr." And Mr. Landwehr said, "Hello, Mr. Rader." And so,
that's some pertinent information.
And of course, an immediate press release was put out. There was a whole gathering of people, and someone for the police department made an announcement that B.T.K had been captured, and the crowd erupted into cheers, and there was finally a sense of relief in the community that they had gotten the guy. Of course,
the church was freaking out, though.
The church was freaking out. Rader's family were in complete sense of disbelief at first.
Yeah.
His wife was totally in denial about it at first. But
I think his wife accepted it more than the church. The church were the people that surprised me the most. They were all like, "No way, no. Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? Blah, blah, blah." Like, they stood by him for a while.
Yeah.
They really did. But it seemed like his wife was just like, "Yep, that's what I thought. I'm out of here."
Yeah. It only took about 3 hours to break him in interrogation. It seemed like he wanted them to present him with whatever it took so that he could finally let it off. Like,
yeah.
All right.
Well, when they showed him that floppy,
yeah,
it was done.
They showed him the floppy, and he's like, they were like, just say it, Dennis, just say it. And he kind of looked at the wall behind him and said, I'm B.T.K.
Yeah.
And so they had they knew that it wasn't even going to be hard to convict him in front of a jury for all 10 murders at that point once he admitted to do it, because he'd already connected himself through all these letters. That's
absolutely.
I mean, he really could have give up a better. It was his own downfall of needing the attention from everything, or else he could have gotten away with this forever. If he didn't, even if he stopped writing letters in the 80s, like he did for so long, he never reemerged in 2004. He never would have been caught.
No, I don't think so either.
No.
Nope. If he would have just kept his mouth shut.
He just rode off gardening with his wife for the rest of his life.
You know that's got to eat at him in prison every fucking day.
His own greed.
The fact that he could have...
Ego.
He could have
got
made
to
it.
him.
Yeah. That's got to eat at him.
Dennis Rader would end up being charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences with a minimum of 175 years. He just narrowly missed the death penalty because it was reinstated in, 94? And so the police really wanted to pin another murder on him that was post 94 so that they could get him on death row.
Yeah,
but they weren't able to pull it off. And so after Rader was arrested, police looked into unsolved cases in the area. He wasn't linked to any. So he now sits in solitary confinement in El Dorado Correctional Facility. He's done several interviews. He says that porn nauseates him. He's bewildered by anyone that might think he's homosexual, and he felt that he never cheated on his wife with any of his victims because he never penetrated any of them.
But what was strange, though, at one point in time during the confession, in the 30-hour confession that he gave in jail, he had talked about possibly going homosexual in prison. He's like, I'm not above it.
Yeah.
He had admitted to that.
That's weird because the quote I said that he's maybe that was earlier on when he had been interviewed, and then he's kind of changed his tune.
Oh, yeah. Well, he didn't want that out, obviously.
What was crazy is what we talked about is him standing in court and the judge making him describe every murder, all 10 of them.
Oh, yeah, you got to check that out. The video's on YouTube.
And it just shows you how evil this guy is because he just does it in a way that you're just like, there's nothing in this guy.
It's just so
There's
nonchalant.
no emotion in this guy.
Nope.
He told it as though he was like in a business meeting.
Yep.
You know, it was like him describing the most mundane shit, but it was the most horrific shit.
Almost like almost like a training video for how to be a serial killer.
Right.
Starring Dennis Rader.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. So, yeah, it was pretty twisted, man.
It was fun studying for him.
It was.
I just wish we had more time, but I hope we did a good job. I know you guys know a lot about this guy.
Yeah, there's so much out
Hence
there.
the reluctancy to do him for so long. So hopefully we didn't get too much wrong, and we didn't miss too much.
Listen, if it wasn't good, it's your fault, guys, because you just kept
your expectations too high.
Well, you just lower your expectations.
Right.
Everything will be better.
Right.
No, I mean you recommended it, and but I did have fun studying it. Though.
Oh yeah, no, he was more interesting than I thought. Mm-hmm. I think he kind of capitalized on the media, and I don't think that was intention. I think he was kind of like, we brought up last week, we're like, well, he wasn't like Dahmer. Dahmer didn't want the limelight and this and that. He enjoyed it, but it was kind of like Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was going to kill whether he got credit for it or not. He couldn't.
Right.
He couldn't stop himself. He had something in him, and that's the same with this guy. He would have killed whether it made him a celebrity or not, or whether he became a notorious serial killer. This was an issue that this guy had.
You think so? I feel like he really wanted credit, though.
But why
reach out? Why not just go about your business and...
No, he liked it. Don't get me wrong. That became a new obsession for him. Yeah. But he would have done it.
Initially, you're saying...
Initially, he was going to kill anyway.
It wasn't about the publicity is what you're getting at.
That's not why he killed.
It was a nice side thing. Yeah.
Maybe that's why he continued to kill. Maybe. But initially, he killed not for the credit. He just... when it happened, he was like, ooh, I like this too. I'm getting off on people talking about me doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Made him feel like somebody.
Yeah.
But it's got to be its own form of torture, though, because with, Dennis, not talking about Rex here, but like Dennis can't let that kind of shit out. I mean, he couldn't let anything remote. He couldn't even let out the fact that he looked at porn. I mean, that was like more absurd to him.
Yeah.
Than killing people. I mean, it was just crazy. Like we talked about earlier, if committing adultery was just like, oh God, no, I wouldn't do that.
Right. This guy still sits in prison.
Yeah.
Still alive. Well, I don't know what he is in his 70s or something at this point.
Yeah, I guess so.
He's getting up there. He was born in, 45.
Yeah, like
45. He's old
73?
as shit. Yeah, 73.
Wow.
Evil still lurking in the walls.
Yeah, he's probably just wasting away right now.
Oh, he is.
I'm sure. He's still evil. Sure, you think he's probably took a few lovers over the years
in prison? I don't think he could take anybody anymore. I think he's been taken. at this point.
You think he's,
One could hope.
Yeah.
One could hope that someone's taken power back from him.
Yeah,
a few
really.
times in prison at least.
Yeah.
I think he's in solitaire. I think they keep him away from General Pop because he's
yeah.
he's too big of a name.
Kids.
He's
Killed
too
kids.
big of a name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there was one poem. There was a couple things that were interesting from the book that I just remembered. At one point, he was being transferred through the prison, and like the inmates when he was being walked down the corridors were like chanting BTK, 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 and he goes, "Guys, I'm not BTK. I'm Dennis Rader." And they all just like laughed at him. He takes himself so seriously.
Really
So here's
appreciate
another-
it if you guys stop calling me that.
Another really funny story. So one time he was looking out the window, right? He had like a window in his cell, and he loved like watching the sunset and stuff, and he would write poetry about it and whatnot in prison.
God.
And so he's looking out the window one time, and there was one of the guys that worked for the prison who was out like picking up the yard, like he was like doing maintenance on the yard outside.
Yeah.
And the guy looked over at Dennis Rader and flipped him off, and he worked for the prison.
Yeah.
And so he wrote like the warden of the prison and said that it's really unprofessional of your correctional officers to be flipping off inmates. And so the warden of the prison got over the intercom and told the entire prison, he goes, whoever the officer was that flipped off BTK, please do not flip off BTK. He does not appreciate that. And the entire fucking prison just started like cracking up and clapping and laughing and everything. And his dumbass thought like, someone said that like he would appreciate it. He actually thought he didn't realize they were all laughing at him. He thought they were celebrating him getting the better of the prison. That's how his mind works. Was that his ego was so big and like he was so about himself that
What an idiot.
he thought he'd gotten one over on the prison, but really everyone was just laughing at the guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
He still thinks he's going out on top after all these years.
Hey man, you can't lose if you got that mentality, I guess.
Apparently not.
'Cause you're in
Hey,
such
but it's all
denial
about
the world
perception.
around.
Yeah, I guess.
It is.
We say that so much, but yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
So 2:42 for this one, almost 3 hours. Just like we just can't keep them under 3 hours anymore, can we?
Not for Patreon.
No,
because you keep picking these big cases, man.
All right. Hey, this was
Gotta be
popular
studied.
demand. Everyone wanted it. You ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
If you ask enough damn times.
I'll tell you what I found really interesting in my book. I thought it was going to kind of trail off because it got through the crime so quickly. Like before halfway, like all the crimes are done. And I'm just like, wow, what the hell am I going to listen to for the rest of this time? But it talked about the point of view from his pastor, Michael Clark, and then it talked about the point of view from one of the lead psychiatrists. And it was really interesting to hear their totally conflicting reviews. Like
Right.
Pastor Clark, like it actually, this whole case inspired him to like look into exorcism and demonic possession and all this stuff because he truly believed Dennis when Dennis told him.
Oh, geez.
But of course, Dennis is going to tell him that.
Yeah.
See what I mean? That's
He tells
just-
people what they want to hear.
Exactly. That's just part of it. And so like he actually went to these like courses and was studying like to try and quote unquote heal Dennis.
Right.
That's why he never gave up on him. Like he went to this special like guru on demonic possession and learned from him for like a few weeks.
Yeah.
And was just like soaking up everything he could on. It was like a Catholic priest that like really was specialized in demonic possession. And so, like, this is how far he was going to try to help Dennis. Like, he was that convinced. He was like, there's no way that Dennis Rader could have done this.
Yeah.
And then the psychiatrist, of course, he took the complete opposite. He's like, yeah. He's like, it's completely normal that Dennis did this. Like, it's the fact that it's a perception. It's the way he perceived things. It's not so much what happened to Dennis. His childhood wasn't crazy.
Right.
These events that happened to him were not crazy. It's just the way Dennis perceived them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like he saw his mother tied up in sheets, and he thought, "Oh, I'm attracted to that. All women should be tied up in sheets, and they should."
The average
be
person
dead.
wouldn't have thought twice about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then also the pressure that was put on him through his spirituality, through his his status in the neighborhood or whatever.
It's his own pressure putting that on himself.
Exactly.
Anybody could do that.
Exactly. I mean, growing up, I seen it in my own family, just on this much smaller scale, obviously, just how we couldn't let anything that wasn't perfect and clean and straight edged out of our family circle. You know what I mean? Like, God forbid so-and-so at church finds out that
Michael's got a tattoo.
that you were drunk the other night or or whatever. It's just, it's all bullshit.
Right.
It's all a masquerade. And he just took it to the extreme. And because these limitations were put on him, he wasn't able to talk about it. He wasn't ever able to bring it to the surface. I mean, what would Paula have said? She'd probably left him.
I almost feel like with him, none of that. I think he had like a genetic defect, this guy, and I think it's very rare, and I think that comes along once in a while. We talked about Harvey Glattman. There's like, because it just seems like it's like they hit the same check marks. Like Harvey Glattman, it's like the same imagery is what spawned him to do that, like what motivated him to do this. And it's like you see him pop up like once every 30 years, these killers that it's all about tying up the victim, and it's the imagery of it, and that's it. And it's like he had it from the time he's like 3. You know, he had these dark images, and he started drawing shit in elementary school, and it's like,
yeah, but
you could have put him in any childhood, any setting, and he probably would have been done. He probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah, but how would he have felt in a setting where he can express that and he's not looked at like
maybe,
a fucking psycho?
Maybe it would have been different, yeah.
Okay,
Maybe
that's what I'm saying.
Maybe he would have been a famous artist. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he would have made comic books.
Yeah.
Maybe he would have wrote something.
Maybe he would have drawn
graphic,
those
like,
detective magazines that he liked. Maybe he could have been an artist. For
who knows? Yeah, if it was more accepted from in his society.
Yeah,
where
you're
he
right.
grew up.
I can see. Yeah. Everyone's genetics also, like your environment, has a lot to do with how your genetics respond to that environment, I guess.
Right. And if you're never allowed to express that, and you're never taught how to express that, or, I mean, it could blow up like this.
He's a mystery, man. I don't know. He could have just been a psychopath that never felt emotion, and he didn't know how to act like a human being. He just knew how to portray a natural human being, but he didn't actually know how to be one.
Right.
He didn't know how to express emotion. He didn't have emotion.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have remorse. He didn't have empathy. You know, I feel like he's just an automatron, and he just wanted to fantasize his entire life, and sometimes the fantasies had to become real.
Yeah. The fact that he was never taught how to express it is why it had to become real. It just... He had no other outlets.
He had to keep it.
He had no other outlet. I mean, what do you do?
He had to live in the shadows.
That's why he had to hide all his drawings.
And he lashed out here and there.
That's why he had to hide all his drawings. And that's why I think ultimately that's why the people had to die, is because if not, then those people know. See what I'm saying? You can't act it out on somebody and then they live, because then now that person knows that you're not a perfect person. Mm-hmm. He couldn't deal with that.
Yeah.
With his OCD, he can't deal with that. I mean, you're talking about a dude that laid his pencils and pens out in the same area on his desk. This dude can't handle it.
Which is why it might have affected him so much when his wife found him with the rope around his neck in the bedroom, and why he may have gone on such a long hiatus, because he did view himself as
He's
not
trying
that
to
guy.
erase that. He's trying to build that trust back. He has to have that trust. He has to have that opinion back up to that standard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's it. We can't talk about
That's
him
it. You
anymore.
guys already have your opinions
we're
about
going
him anyways.
We're going in circles.
This is some bullshit.
Right.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the present. Hope you enjoyed that little blast from the past. But now get ready for some current stuff, like advertisements. Yeah, y'all stick around, because it's Oh My Gaia. Guys, why have you not tried Oh My Gaia yet? What's wrong with you? You just like using regular deodorant? You just like putting cancer in your armpits or something? I mean, let's get it. Let's get it, okay? Let's get on the same track here. You don't know what Oh My Gaia is? Oh My Gaia is an innovative all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. Guys, you could eat it. Don't, but you could. There's a ton of scents to choose from. There's unscented, vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot, amber, and we even have our own scent, guys. The True Crime guys have their very own scent called True Crime Pine, of course, because where else do you bury people than up in the pines? You know, people that are already dead, not people you murder, of course. But anyways, guys, True Crime Pine. And because you're a True Crime Guys listener, you can get 15% off your order by using the word creeper. That's CREEPER. And you can get 15% off your order. Guys, no shave November? No problem. She's got beard oil. Perfect. Ladies, don't have a beard? No problem. She's got scented oil. Oh, she has a new scent too that I'm pretty crazy about. It's called Sailor. All right? And I don't know how many she had in stock, but she did have some True Crime Guys incense, and they smell amazing. I just recently put in an order for some more. No joke, guys. Some of you may have guessed, but I burn a lot of incense. My wife really turned me onto them. She loves incense. And it's the problem with incense is once it burns out, it's gone. It's like if that smoke's not floating through the air, you don't have a smell. It's not like that with these True Crime Pine incense. Guys, the smell sticks around. It smells amazing. I personally love it. But anyways, get those while they last. They may be a limited item, so Guys, hit up Oh My Gaia. That's ohmygaia.com. OHMYGAIA.com or at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram. All right, guys. So now that that's out of the way. Also, guys, thank you so much, everyone who has reviewed the show, especially on iTunes. It's crucial. It helps a lot, guys. You may have noticed that we've been putting up more advertisements, more standalone advertisements for podcasts through Wondery and things like that. Like, guys, these are, I mean, you know, if you know Wondery Podcast Network at all, they only put out good shit. Like, let's just be honest. Their stuff is amazing. So we always take their ads, and, you know, they work with us. So you guys may see more of those popping up. Those will always be done by either me or Lauren. But yeah, we appreciate you guys just for listening. If you guys just give those things a listen, that helps us. But reviews help the show the most. That's how we get noticed for advertisements and all that good stuff. I'm boring you guys with this shit. Let's get to some shout outs. Now, let's see here. We tend to only shout out the 5 stars, but we're going to be fair. We're going to be fair, okay? Yeah, let's shout out anybody that gives above a 3. I think that's fair. All right. Shout out to Bailey, 5 stars. Fulfills my need for all-day true crime. Ooh, go easy on that. You catch up fast. And then you're hounding us about new episodes, and then you're like, oh, these guys don't release enough. I'm out of here. So slow down. Let's see. What do we got? Dipley Doom, 5 stars. Thank you. Love this podcast. Very informative. Thank you. Angie Horror, 5 stars. All fire emojis. That's all you got to do. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Angie Horror. 163848 / and symbol in parentheses / question mark exclamation point comma 8 semicolon 8 exclamation point 3 open parentheses squirt gun emoji. Didn't think I was going to read your whole name, did you? But I did. They've said best podcast out there, 5 stars. You're amazing. Jellybean 1407. These guys get it. 5 stars. Thanks, Jellybean. Appreciate that. VA 1994. Literally not good. Oh, shit. I didn't mean to read that one out. Whatever. Fuck you. Here we go. Diane. Nope. That's also a bad review. My bad. Just_Chell. 5 stars. She says, I'm sad. Oh, I assume it's a she because it says Shell. But I'm sad I've listened to them all, and now I have to wait for new episodes. See, that's the problem. That's what I'm telling you guys. Slow down a little bit. If you're starting to catch up, maybe just go listen to some other stuff. I hear Jack Luna's got a dope podcast out now called Crime Machine. I think we're going to run a promo for that. Not including this one, but Jack's a cool dude. Started out about the same time we did, and he's always helped us out when we needed it. So good luck to that. That show is probably going to be dope because everything he does is. Number 1 podcast, 5 stars by TNT Stud. Thank you. New Creeper and Freeloader Extraordinaire, 5 stars. Thank you, Dith's dad. Somebody's dad. This is cool. Let me read this. I love this podcast so much. You guys keep me laughing through really heart-wrenching topics. Recently went all the way back to 2017 with Randy Kraft. One of the early podcasts mentions the origins of the Creeper Army. That's right. Glad to be a part of this awesome experience. I'm an old guy, but my youngest is studying to be in law enforcement with an emphasis on psychology and aberrant behavior. I recommend this show and Mindhunter. Yeah, Mindhunter is dope. She loves your podcast. She's 19, is diehard Creeper now. Sorry to gush, but keep it going. Nice. We appreciate it, brother. And tell your daughter thank you for spreading the word. I wish I could listen with my parents. That would be great. Not to my show, of course. That would be weird, but you know. Anyways, hell yeah. 5 stars. Thank you. Live Fire, 5 stars. Thank you so much. Jaboyet, 5 stars. K-Mag. I love being called a freeloader. 5 stars. Thank you. Marty Party. I heard about the Bodies and Barrels episodes and had to listen. Now I'm hooked. Sweet. That was one of my favorite cases to study. Not like favorite cases like, oh, I'm so glad that happened so I could talk about it. No, not like that way, but it was a lot of good discussion with that one. It's Like Crack, 5 stars. FMOIG. Binged every episode. You guys are hilarious. I need more favorite freeloader. Awesome. Thank you so much. Guys, I hope I didn't leave anybody out. If I did, thank you very much. And send me an email and we'll get you a shout out. for you, and you can tell your friends, like, hey, this podcast that you never heard of, give me a shout out. And they'll be like, what? You listen to a crime podcast? That's weird. It's kind of creepy. Not anymore, really. I feel like it's becoming very normal. Anyways, I'm going to let you guys go, okay? Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for listening, for being freeloaders. Peace out, guys, and keep creeping.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.